Where was I? Oh, I wanted to pour one out for the American foamers, the American railway enjoyers. We are never getting, we are never ever getting decent high speed rail. Okay. We're just not, it's not happening. China's high speed rail network has passed the 50,000 kilometer mark. The United States has 80. Is Brightline, I think that's it, right? And from what I understand, Brightline, like there is not a single, I'm pretty sure there's not a single American high speed rail build out there that is actually reaching the standards of like regular international high speed rail. Wait, no. Do you think America has 80,000 kilometers? No, America has 80 kilometers total. There's a couple. There's a couple. I think it's longer than 80. I thought it was longer than 80 kilometers, but like, yeah, you got the people are saying it's Acela, and then there's the private one, Brightline in Florida, but it's not. It's actually not up to the same standards as like the high speed rail that you see in China, because not all high speed rail is the same. There's varying degrees of speed on high speed rail. Yeah, Brightline sucks. It uses the same rail as freight. It takes as long to drive from Orlando to Miami. Yeah. The problem is like American high speed rail average commute times are no are not up to snuff. They are not up to the standards of high speed rail internationally. Our high speed rail is a different standard. Quote unquote higher speed rail isn't the same thing either. It isn't even counted in this 80 kilometers. I don't think no American high speed rail is even real. Yeah. Like American high speed rail is not actually real high speed rail, if that makes sense. It's fake. Couple reasons for why. One, it's nowhere near as fast. And two, it still operates with like freight trains as well on the same railroads, and therefore the commute is always still the commute times are always still out of whack. This is one of the biggest issues with high speed or just rail transport in the United States of America, is that there is a tremendous priority for freight, because a lot of commerce takes place on the railroads, and freight trains, it's not just commerce. There's like, chemicals being transported, stuff like that. And the freight rail industry is an oligopoly owned by like, I think like three corporations that also own the railroads as well in many of these places. And therefore they get to dictate, they get to dictate whatever the fuck they want to do. Very little regulation, very little regulation on how long the freight rail trains can be, how many cabins you can add, what kind of cargo they have, how heavy they are. Obviously, it's a massive problem, because sometimes they're so long that they end up blocking roads, for example. Sometimes, not only are they long, but also sometimes because they overload it, and the regulation around freight rail that's supposed to be like, putting cargo all around the country, or traveling all around the country with cargo, they will get derailed, causing issues. One of the ones that was very famous was Palestine, Ohio, if you remember. Stuff like East Palestine, Ohio. Things like that happen all the time in America. I believe there's like one derailment per day, if I'm not mistaken, in the United States of America. It's so common that it's so commonplace that, or it's more than one, but it's so commonplace that like a lot of people don't even realize that it's happening all the time. And most of the time, people don't even cover it. Like the news media doesn't even cover it unless there's like um, a lot of interest in that kind of story. I don't know. It's all busted across the board. But there are a lot more train derailments happening in the United States of America than you know of. And it's so commonplace that, and it happens to varying degrees. Sometimes it's not as like, sometimes it doesn't lead to like an ecological disaster. But these are some of the many reasons as to why American commuter rail is just simply not a viable method of transport. Um, and it's also incredibly beneficial for the airline industry and even the car industry. The automobile industry and the airline industry get to be as profitable as they want to be and get to maintain oligopolies themselves. In the United States of America, an oligopoly is when a market is dominated by more than one, but because one would be a monopoly, but three, sometimes four, maybe five different companies, right? And there is tremendous corporate consolidation, and therefore they get to dictate the service that they're offering. They get to dictate the prices, and there's not a lot of competition there. There are very few entities and major pricing power. Exactly, and these guys get to set their profit margins however way they see fit as a direct consequence of no market competition in transport. They've eradicated public transit and specifically eradicated interstate public transit, and therefore they get to drive up prices in any way, shape, or form they see fit. This is very beneficial. Our lack of commuter railway as an option, our lack of viability in commuter rail as an alternative to other forms of travel is incredibly beneficial for the airliners. And it's incredibly beneficial for the automobile industry as well. Yes, China doesn't have a bureaucracy. They do. Of course, China has a bureaucracy as well. But they also have a lot of motivation to improve their people's lives. That's it. Of course, they have bureaucracy. They have tremendous bureaucracy. The problem is it's a more efficient form of bureaucracy. I think ultimately, bureaucratic process or not, ultimately, what they don't have is what they do not have is the profit incentive playing a formative role in what the decisions the government makes. That's just the truth. A lot of people refuse to recognize that. A lot of people don't understand it. Hasanabi vindicated, chatter incorrect again.
Stop calling China.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's ultimately the major difference is the profit incentive is completely secondary. Specifically, Southwest Airlines has been caught multiple times lobbying the absolute shit out of Texas state legislator to ensure no passenger rail is built in Texas or South at large. Their business would not exist without killing intercity passenger transportation being suppressed in the South. That's not even true. So that part is also not even true. Like, of course, airliners would still exist. They exist in China. They exist everywhere. They exist in countries where they have a robust rail network. It just wouldn't be as profitable. That's the problem. That's the issue. It simply would not be as profitable. And you can't have that. Anyway, some people prefer airlines, the rail. Yeah. There's also there's obviously a range in your travel where if you go above a certain range, like if you go above a certain length of travel, like, yeah, air transport is always going to be more viable. Same with cargo, same with everything else. The problem is we don't even have the option. We don't even have the alternative. But yeah, if you're wondering why it's not if you're wondering why we don't have these kinds of alternative modes of transport, well, it's endlessly profitable for many key industries, and that's a big part of it. Anyway, operational networks. China has now passed 50,000 kilometers in length. Spain is at 3.9K. America, let's see where the United States of America is. Operational length of the North American continent, United States high-speed rail is 136 kilometers, not 136,000, 136 kilometers. Yeah, China is at number 1, Spain is at number 2, France is at number 3 with 3,500, Germany is at 3,300. Turkey is at 1,000 at number 10, cracking the top 10 there. Finland is at 900. Russia is at 650. Taiwan is at 351. Poland is at 285. The United States of America is at 136 kilometers, and Hong Kong has 26, which is really funny. Thinking about Hong Kong having high-speed rail is pretty funny because Hong Kong is literally the size of a nugget in comparison to the entire like land mass of the United States of America, and we barely have 6 times the fucking high-speed rail of Hong Kong. Hong Kong is a city. Okay? I need you to understand. Hong Kong is a city. Like in a normal planet, if you were to look at the actual landmass of these countries, understandably China is still going to be at the top because China is massive, right? Massive landmass. However, America should be up there, right? Whether it be population density, whether it be the total landmass. If you look at the relative size of the country, America should be up there. And another country that should be up there is obviously Russia as well. Big L for Russia in that regard. It's honestly amazing that Hong Kong thought it would gain independence from China. A city-state will not survive in the modern world. I mean, look at Singapore. That's not true. You kind of, I mean, the difference is, I think with Singapore, there was almost like a mutual agreement, and also some racialized tensions as well. But with Hong Kong, it was a colonial ownership. There are definitely countries that make it work. You should have said Vatican City. Singapore also works with China a lot. If Hong Kong went independent, how could they still rely on China? No, guys, with respect to Hong Kong independence, obviously there's a difference between being like a historic colonial outpost versus having a relatively sizable multi-ethnic country that is connected to a larger country historically, but was not like a colonial outpost in the same way. Is the ethnic demographic of Singapore unique in some way? Yes, it's the Chinese Singaporean, Malay Singaporean dynamic at play. There's also a religious factor at play as well. It was racial plus wealth disparity. Singapore was disproportionately wealthy as a fortress of all Southeast Asia under the British and an Asian banking city. It's gross, to be honest. I mean, I think it was also with Singapore, and I'm not like the most knowledgeable on this, but I think the difference, or the separation between Singapore and Malaysia. Also, Singapore is one of the most interesting countries, in my opinion. I'm fascinated with it. It's barely a country. It's not really a country at all. They have some really fucking rigorous, like anti-immigrant rules. Like Singapore is the most in a weird way, is the most like Strasserite country of all time. Because on the one hand, they're like super reactionary when it comes to certain aspects of immigration and like utilizing migrant labor and like totally not allowing them to have like adequate living standards. But then simultaneously, they're insanely woke when it comes to like government ownership. Like state control over certain aspects of existence is so high that has tremendously improved the living standards of Singaporeans, whether it be the actual control over housing, or whether it also be the control over like even the cars. You know, it's a very fascinating country, very diverse, very fascinating country. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know how to explain it, but it is truly a fascinating country. Like people will look to Singapore and go, "Oh, it's capitalism. It's such a pro-capitalist country." And in many respects it is. Except they also have the most, like, if you were to adopt Singaporean like land ownership rules in America, which kind of exists with like property taxes already, right? But if you were to like restructure it and you were to make it virtually illegal for someone to own two houses, okay? It's literally illegal. Like if you if you made it illegal to have ownership over more than one property, for example, Americans would riot, okay? They would fucking riot. There's so many people whose entire like nest egg, his entire retirement fund is just like additional properties that they've purchased. Singapore feels like capitalism finally working, but only if you accept living inside of a productivity spreadsheet within laws. Malaysia is messier, more unequal, more corrupt. This is ChatGPT, but also more human, more contested. This is a ChatGPT response, 100%. Even with like the M dashes, I can literally smell the ChatGPT take here. Okay, it is. I fucking called it. Very brief 3-minute history on why Singapore is independent and not a part of Malaysia. Brief history on why Singapore is an independent country.
That territories are kicked out of countries.
I mean, these things are kind of
go to great lengths
usually
to make sure that they keep hold of as much land and as many people as humanly possible. Yet in 1965, this very thing happened to Singapore when it was ejected from Malaysia. Given how rare willingly losing a bit of land is throughout human history, the obvious question is, why? Why was Singapore, such a geographically important region, kicked out of Malaysia? So, after the Second World War, Southeast Asia was in a place of flux, and many of the area's imperial powers were struggling to reassert their authority there. This was because throughout the war, these areas had been occupied by Japan, and the Japanese had made sure to place them under the control of the native people. And at the end of the war, the Europeans returned and had wanted everything to go back to normal, but fun fact, no. One example is Britain. As of 1948, Britain's Southeast Asian colonies were the Federation of Malaya, Singapore, Sarawak, Brunei, and North Borneo. Despite Britain's best efforts, though, by September 1960...
Oh, there's also Brunei, I forgot. As many people do.
1963, all of these colonies, barring Brunei, were independent. And all of these independent states opted to join the brand new Malaysia in the same year. For some, it was fear of communist takeover that pushed them into union, and for Singapore, it was about giving it access to larger markets to increase its wealth. And also, Malaysia wasn't Britain, which seemed like a step in the right direction for Singapore. Yet, a mere 2 years after joining Malaysia, Singapore was out. But why? Well, the reason was primarily political. Malaysian politics at this time was dominated by the Malaysian Solidarity Convention, a coalition of right-wing parties led by Tunku Abdul Rahman that represented Malaysia's largest ethnic groups, whereas Singaporean politics was monopolised by the People's Action Party, which was a more centrist multi-ethnic party headed by Lee Kuan Yew. Now, both sides had rushed into this union because fear of communism, and both immediately ran into major issues. The first was that Malaysia operated on a system called Malaysian Malaysia, which discriminated against those who weren't ethnically Malaysian. The second was that the central government based in Kuala Lumpur was sure to clamp down on any idea of Singapore maintaining any real autonomy because it was afraid that Singapore would become the nation's heart. As such, the PAP, despite promising not to, opted to run in the 1964 federal election against the MSC. Now, the PAP was crushed, but the fact that it ran on a platform of ending racial discrimination worried the MSC. The reason being that about 30 to 35% of Malaysia's population was ethnically Chinese, and this voting bloc could have kept the MSC out of power. In fact, the only reason why most Chinese Malaysians voted for the MSC was the threat that any attempt to rewrite the system in place would lead to the government joining Indonesia to keep the Chinese out of power forever. As such, Rahman came up with a brilliant idea. Let's just kick Singapore out. Tensions continued to rise and culminated in a series of race riots in Singapore whose population was overwhelmingly Chinese. You should know, though, that this wasn't some quick unilateral decision, and there were many months of discussions between both sides. Most Singaporean leaders wished to remain a part of Malaysia, but some, like Goh Keng Swee, wanted to have a much looser agreement. The Malaysian government said no, and so Swee pushed for Singapore to leave Malaysia altogether. The deadlock continued and tensions rose further, and so Rahman went to the Malaysian parliament and pushed for a vote on simply expelling Singapore, which he won unanimously. On August 9, 1965, the Singaporean representatives reluctantly declared independence, and thereafter Singapore would be an independent nation, one which then became incredibly wealthy, so it sort of worked out in the end. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thank you for watching.
1/3 of Chad thinks Hassan is liberal, 1/3 thinks he's a communist, 1/3 thinks he's a controlled opposition bourgeoisie, but choose to stick around and chat for some reason. Yeah. So Tom Cotton wasn't wrong when he asked TikTok what kind of Chinese he is. Brother, it's like asking a fucking white guy what kind of Italian he is. Okay. Oh, are you Italian? And someone goes, no, I'm actually from Switzerland. Like I grew up in Switzerland. I'm Swiss. And you're like, nah, you're Italian. And you're like it obviously doesn't hit the same because, like, you know, Switzerland has many Italian people, many French people, right? But like they're Swiss. Okay, Switzerland's a terrible example of that. Wait, what? No, it's not a terrible example of that. The reason why it doesn't hit the same is because they're technically white and we live under a white supremacist construct. So obviously, you don't see that disparity as being all that significant. Whereas the difference between someone who's Singaporean of, you know, Chinese ethnic background, for example, versus a Chinese person is that China is a foreign adversary, but from the American perspective, Singapore is actually an ally. There's no such distinction. Nah? Okay. There's no such significant distinction between Switzerland and Italy in the eyes of the Americans. In any case, yeah. Switzerland, the whitest white place on earth. It really is. It really is. It's so. The white example you gave reminded me of this white discourse from TikTok. What is this? European telling American girls they're not actually European. This guy's a rage baiter.
That makes no sense. Like, if say, like,
I don't care about this guy. This guy's let's see this.
Authoritarian. It's not. China is a political meritocracy. It's governed by tested, experienced administrators who've spent decades proving they can govern.
Dude, you want to know something crazy? I think a lot of the I think this is going to really frustrate people, but I think in this upcoming decade there will be a lot of Americans who will realize that one, they've been lied to about China. Obviously, there is it's not my mom, it's my dad. There will be a lot of Americans who will go, okay, we've been lied to about China, but then also, no, that's not even optimistic. It's already happening. But I think there will also be a lot of Americans who might even go so far as to say, perhaps a lot of what we knew about the current conditions in North Korea are wrong too. I saw a CNN piece on it recently, and the improvements in Pyongyang, despite like the North Korean form of governance that, you know, I also personally think is a little ridiculous, okay, to say the least, is Pyongyang has improved dramatically in spite of the mass blockades. But anyway,
Here's
let's
how it
watch
works.
this real
And join
quick
us for
and we'll
more
look at it. No, it was a
international politics.
CNN. It was a CNN thing.
At culturalperspective.com. China has 5 levels of government: township, county, prefecture, province, and central. To reach national leadership, officials must climb every rung, a process that takes 20 to 30 years. You can't skip levels, you can't buy your way in. You prove yourself or you don't advance. And by the time someone reaches the Politburo Standing Committee, they've governed populations larger than most European countries. And this isn't one-man rule. 7 people sit on the Standing Committee. The State Council handles administration. The National People's Congress passes law. Compare that to the United States, where someone with absolutely no government experience can be elected as president. But this is what sets the Chinese system apart: the incredible results it's created for its people. An end to poverty, one of the largest middle classes in history, and in just a generation, drastically reducing pollution, high-speed rail, greening the deserts. There are more trees in China today than there were 20 years ago.
You think it might be an apt comparison that currently the pro-China Americans look at China the way anti-Nazi Germans looked at America in the 20s and 30s? What? The way anti-Nazi Germans looked at America in the 20s and 30s? I don't think so. I think the anti-fascist Germans were communist. So I don't know how they looked at America. I don't know how much they looked at America. Remember, there was a almost revolution there was an unsuccessful revolution in Germany prior to the Nazi rise. So I doubt that they were focusing too much. But yo, this was insane. Look at this.
Pyongyang, North Korea, American filmmaker.
China can both be meritocratic and authoritarian in aspects of its governance. Not sure why this guy thinks it's mutually exclusive. Yeah, all matter. My attitude on this is all matter of governance requires a level of authority and a level of authoritarianism. I think a lot of people mistake that though, or misunderstand it. The American understanding of authority and authoritarianism is like, is in some ways very honest. It's whatever the government is telling me not to do that I want to do, because ultimately that is what authority is, right? And we just decide what, you know, out of all of those rules, which ones kind of make sense, right? For example, technically the age of consent is very authoritarian for people who want to violate it, right? People who want to, rape minors are going to have a hard time doing that unless they're super wealthy billionaires, obviously, in the United States of America, as we found out that this is a pedophile occupied government, but that's a totally separate point. But technically, the laws in the books that say, hey, you can't predate on children, that is authoritarian for the people who want to do that, right? But we all understand that that's a good fucking rule. Pretty solid rule, right? So we don't see that as like authoritarian. Depending on, what variant of politics understander you are, you might even consider taxation to be authoritarian, right? Oh, it's theft. You might consider any kind of gun control to be authoritarian. You might consider any kind of like reasonable hate crime provisions or hate speech provisions to be authoritarian. Many Americans do consider those things to be authoritarian. Many Americans at the time, before drunk driving laws were put in place, thought drunk driving laws would be authoritarian. So authority is often misunderstood. But in any case, this blew my mind too. I mean, look, I'll say it. I'm not, I've talked about the DPRK's history and, the genocide that took place that would be considered a genocide if it wasn't like led by the American government at the time, and how, devastated North Korea has been and how fucked over North Korea has been, but also simultaneously talked about the dynastic rule of the Kim family. Having said that, of course, this is shocking. I keep seeing clips about DPRK and specifically Pyongyang and how much they've improved in Pyongyang, and I will admit I'm shocked about it. Okay, I did not think that the level of improvement was at this level, because I'm a old school left book guy. Okay, and back in the day, I used to get really mad at communists on the internet that would say, you don't understand, they're eating hamburger and cheeseburger every day in Pyongyang. And that was like, obviously, we're talking like 10 years ago, so that wasn't even the case. And I also got annoyed with the metric of I don't know, quality of life standards improving being anchored around how many fucking cheeseburgers someone can eat. I thought that was a really stupid way to analyze this stuff. Having said that, these motherfuckers are eating a lot of cheeseburgers, at least in Pyongyang. And of course, others will now turn around and do the same thing that they were doing about the rest of China, to say, well, in other places in North Korea, they're not eating cheeseburger. Pyongyang is just, the capital, so it's different. It's like that's where all the elites are living, and there's truth to that. But there's also a little bit of copium, I think, in that, because not a single one of you motherfuckers in this chat, myself included, would have ever thought that Pyongyang's living standards would have reached this level, in a matter of a couple decades.
And tour guide Justin Martell was absolutely stunned.
Honestly, Pyongyang feels very much like a modern city. We kept joking with our Korean guides that it was Pyonghattan.
Entire neighborhoods have sprung up since his last trip in 2017.
Like just from 2017 to like 2025, the quality of life improvements and like the development that has taken hold in the capital is crazy.
Fancy restaurants, futuristic skyscrapers,
and they were completely modern restaurants. I was there. We ate there. Western menu, Asian menu, Korean menu, high-end liquor, also car dealerships as well. So if you're staying at
this is one of the craziest parts about it, like the car dealerships. That's crazy. Okay, like the food stuff makes sense because like inevitably you're gonna improve your agricultural output, stuff like that. But when you actually are able to go from having the entirety of the population, with the exception of like party members and party leadership, taking personal cars, and maybe some people getting on the buses every now and then to like straight up having vehicles on the street. That's an insane thing. They just rebadged the Chinese cars though. Yeah, no shit. I don't know. As a Kazakh, this doesn't surprise me. I live in a shit murderous authoritarian country. That doesn't mean quality of life didn't improve since the 90s. I think it's just a Western perception of development is how big building, how many restaurants, how good cars. Why am I still following? I don't know. Maybe your mom or your former girlfriend followed while you weren't paying attention.
Akto International Hotel on one end of the city and you want to go out in Hwasong district, it's going to take you about 40 minutes to get there by taxi just because of how big the city has now become, how small
My cousin
it
who
is.
played for the Chinese Basketball Association went to DPRK to play a show match in like 2019. And he told me it was pretty much like China in the 90s and there was a lot of development.
The North Korean elite appear to be enjoying a higher living standard these days, with more access to modern technology.
I doubt this, not gonna lie. It's probably just a super elite who get to live in this area. I doubt the average North Korean working class lives in such good conditions. Okay, I need you to understand something. We're talking about fucking North Korea, brother. Okay? Yeah, no shit. Except that's what's so remarkable about it, because I think if you were, guys, we're talking about a country that post dissolution of the USSR was done. Mass famine, mass death, okay? Like, there were no societal elites or party elites that were able to have any living conditions that resembled like modern living conditions in the developed world. So for me, the fact that they've been able to elevate the living standards of even like people in Pyongyang to this degree is crazy. Okay? That's number one. This is not to say like the North Korean system of governance is good or whatever. It's my favorite. I'm not saying any of that shit, right? I'm simply stating that, like, you ask the average like person in the West, and they think like Yeonmi Park is correct, that they're eating rats and they're pulling and pushing trains out there. Meanwhile, you look at fucking Pyongyang and they're like, they've been able to elevate the living standards, at least in the fucking, they've been able to elevate the living standards to this degree in Pyongyang. And if they're elevating the living standards to this degree in Pyongyang, they're probably, improving the quality of life in other parts of the DPRK as well, in a similar capacity to how China has been able to do so in the rural areas, like developing out the rural areas slowly but surely, while simultaneously greatly improving cities that you now consider to be tier 1 cities, even if they're unofficially tier 1 cities. And I think a big part of this is also because of, obviously, like Russian investment and Chinese investment specifically. I would feel pretty confident in saying that this is due to the increased ties with Russia and to a lesser extent China. Since the war in Ukraine started, there's been a lot more trade coming through compared to before. Yeah. There's also cryptocurrency. I think cryptocurrency was really good for North Korea, straight up. Like, the isn't it kind of funny though to praise a communist country on the wealth of its elites? No, I'm not even like, this is not even praise, honestly. This is more so fascination and shock from the perspective of someone who understands why DPRK is the way it is, who is critical of the dynastic rule and all these other issues. Having said that, I think it's appropriate to admit that this is, standards that I did not think were a quality of life improvement, at least in the capital, that I didn't think was the case. I'm admitting my own personal lack of knowledge in this.
And amenities.
They have apps on their phones where they can order taxis.
I don't understand how you glaze authoritarian regimes just for the development. The same level of development happened in the Chile in the 80s, and it was just not worth it. Beautiful question. Thank you so much for saying this. Thank you so much for asking this question, or at least like making this statement. You're comparing American allies and American puppet leadership, or an authoritarian mode of governance that was specifically designed by the American State Department, and also the influx of foreign capital that flood the markets, that played a role in the development, and then relegated state control over key sectors directly into the hands of multinational corporations that continue to dominate the lives of the Chilean population to this day. Same in Mexico, same in many other Latin American countries. You're comparing that to a country that has been shut off from the international marketplace by force regardless of how much they suffered. In the immediate aftermath, as a matter of fact, of mass bombing campaigns that I still to this day will say amount to a genocide. So obviously there's a difference there. It's the same with like Cuban development or North Korean development as opposed to Chilean development. One is directly getting money pumped into its markets by foreign capital and foreign investors with the specific goal of controlling all of the formerly state-owned sectors. And of course, there's going to be a tremendous amount of development there. The authoritarianism is still the authoritarianism. And no, under no circumstances am I glazing the DPRK government. Make no mistake.
Food, use social media.
And not just in the capital. On North Korea's East Coast, Kim built a brand new beach resort, luxury hotels, even a water park, a project President Trump talked about when he met Kim.
They have great beaches. You see that whenever they're exploding their cannons into the ocean, right? So I said, boy, look at that bridge. Wouldn't that make a great condo behind? And I explained, I said, instead of doing that, you could have the best hotels in the world right there.
For North Korea's privileged, at least, sanctions seem to be doing little to...
DPRK cut themselves off a bit more from international markets by taking out loans and never repaying. Meanwhile, the Chinese and Vietnamese paid back and therefore still had access to the global capital market. Not saying U.S. sanctions in the 90s didn't horrendously hurt, but DPRK cut themselves off from investment in the 70s. The DPRK's starting position is entirely different than Vietnam, and even even a worse condition and far after Chinese governance had already started. It got flattened, it got genocided, and then on top of that, they were completely shut off from the international marketplace. And predatory loans that they did not pay back. Who gives a shit? Like I think that those should be reparations regardless, not just like predatory loans that offer that come with like tremendous austerity measures implemented directly to try and have foreign capital and foreign investment fuck your entire country up. In any case, you're talking about like the Swedish government demanding the North Korean government pay for the Volvos that they sent over. And there's a lot of stuff like that. But I do think ultimately, none of this has to happen if there is truly fair trade, not just fair trade in the way that like international capitalists claim is fair, but just like, allow countries to normalize relations with everybody and participate in the global marketplace. It makes no sense to say that Chile grew in the 80s. The biggest economic crisis in Chile's modern history was in the 80s. The main reason the dictatorship failed economically was because we couldn't access foreign markets and we were isolated courtesy of Pinochet. That Chowder doesn't know what he's talking about. Motherfuckers don't know history at all, talking out of their ass with American propaganda. I mean, I think people are just primed into resisting anything that goes against the black and white thinking that is oftentimes offered to people. That's it. That's the problem. They just don't want that. Genocided, a war the North started. What is this revisionism? You're right. The South Korean brutal authoritarian dictatorship and its mass slaughter of anyone that they declared to be communist or socialist of any variety at the direction of first the former the same oligarch structure that dominated Japan was brought over to Korea, and it basically exchanged ownership from the hands of Japanese imperialists to the American imperialists, and then at the direction of the American imperialists, the insane authoritarian puppet state started absolutely fucking slaughtering the shit out of people that maybe had a little bit of sympathy towards socialism, and the massacres that took place. All of that stuff was just completely irrelevant. It was all DPRK. Yeah, this is the same as like this is literally the most Israel style argument. Genocide? You mean October 7, a war that Hamas started? What is this revisionism? Okay. Give Vance a follow? You mean JD Vance? I think any country that is carefully and deliberately excised from the international marketplace that ends up surviving is a testament to the resilience of all humans, regardless of the odds. That's it. That's how I see it. Countries that have been ritualistically humiliated, dominated, destroyed, bombed into oblivion, that still find ways of surviving is a true testament to the human resilience in general. Is South Korea so great? Why is Squid Games and Bong Joon-ho's Parasite so great? Korea's like 3 companies who literally watch videos on the channel about it. I mean, yeah, there's imperfect modes of governance in South Korea as well. I'm not making this comparison at the, like, I'm not saying that it's DPRK is a wonderful place to live for the average person. Okay, that's not my point at all. I'm simply explaining my own personal shock because I didn't think that they were popping or had any sort of. Did this end already? Oh, it ended. Watch live. Zelensky met with Trump in Florida to discuss the end of Russia's war in Ukraine, which, by the way, ironically, North Korea also plays a role in. If you recall, at the time, everyone was like, "Oh, this is fucking propaganda." I was like, "I don't know. They could be." I said, there's definitely a lot of people that are invested in saying that North Korea is playing a major role in the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I don't know how big of a role they're capable of even playing, but I'm not going to immediately. Fuck. I learned my lesson of not immediately disparaging American State Department narratives when I with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and beyond the artillery factories that they've been sending. What the fuck? That they've been sending artillery to Russia over. There's also, it seems they are absolutely playing a role in the invasion of Ukraine, or at least the defense of the Russian boundaries. It looks like he's in front of a green screen with his focus. Camera is woke. Brother, you were casting doubt on it. I was calling you out. What the fuck? That was not your take, lol. No, I said that there could be truth to it. And it turns out there was. And when there was more evidence, I said it was true. I did not instantly go, no, this is not true. I mean, I did make jokes about it, saying like, North Korea's at the table. I still do. Are you going to get a Steam machine, Steam frame in 2026? I don't know what it is. Anyway, do you think they're a major factor in the war, though? I mean, I think their artillery production is probably playing a much more formative role in the outcome of the Russian invasion than like the actual troops that they've sent over. But I don't know how much of a like a battle defining thing it is to have North Korean soldiers. How does it feel having thousands of eyeballs on you right now? Personally, it feels like I'm slamming my head against other chatters in the digital space. It's all good. All right. Well, let's do this Somali thing because it's massive news. JD Vance tweeted about it, said this dude has done far more useful journalism than any of the winners of the 2024 Pulitzer Prize centers. It's Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley is another one of these like Tyler Oliveira style individuals. And I think they are low-key getting dumber and dumber, if we're being real. I feel like they have gotten... and by dumber, I don't mean like, oh, their arguments are getting dumber. Like, the arguments are always dumb, okay? But, like, Nick Shirley is objectively not a very smart person. Like, you can hear it when he tries to speak, for example. He is not the most intelligent person, but it's once again a testament to how little intellect you actually need to do right-wing propaganda. And he is one of those guys that I've kind of felt bad dunking on because it kind of feels like I'm making fun of someone with a significant intellectual disability in the past. Like, I've literally caught myself being like, maybe I shouldn't do this because it feels kind of fucked up. but I mean, he is seemingly having a lot of impact. But there is an entire like right-wing content ecosystem now that tries to do like Channel 5 style coverage, but without any of the politics, regardless of what you may think about, you know, Andrew or whatnot. But they're basically a lot of these channels that start off as doing like Mr. Beast style content. A lot of these channels that start off doing like Mr. Beast style content, then over the past couple of years have kind of made a pivot to right-wing investigations. And their Tyler Hitler Vera obviously was the OG pivoter. And there are definitely a lot of people that are doing that as well. I get it. Right-wingers are latching onto it, so you reflexively have to defend it. No, there is no. I want to make something very clear before we get started on this journey. There is fraud taking place in Minnesota. Okay. There have been investigations conducted into fraud, welfare fraud specifically, taking place in Minnesota. I've covered it already in Minneapolis. Okay. Yes, this is true. There's also been a lot of news coverage around the fraud that has taken place in Minneapolis, Minnesota, just like there's welfare fraud taking place everywhere else. I'm in favor of prosecuting everyone that does it, regardless of what their background is. There is no, oh, wait, but they're Somali Americans, so we shouldn't prosecute them. That's not how I play this game. Okay? It's ridiculous. However, the actual inconsistent standard that is being placed here is not on the left, even though right-wingers try to claim that it's actually the left that is doing this. Right-wingers claim that it is actually leftists and liberals, libtards specifically, that say, oh, if it's a Somali person doing fraud, then you should let them go. Okay? This is not true. It's actually the right. It is actually the right that does this. The right says, if a Somali person is committing fraud, then all Somalis are at fault. We should only focus on the Somalis doing fraud, and we should deport them. We should denaturalize them. Do not look at the white people that are committing fraud. Do not look at the legacy Americans that are committing fraud. Do not look at the pandemic business loans, the PPP loan fraud that took place. Do not look at Brett Favre and all these other people who will never see the inside of a prison cell. Do not look at the type of person. Do not look at like Rick Scott, for example. That person who was investigated and never really saw any serious criminal repercussions for doing Olympic level Medicare fraud, is an American senator, is an American it was the governor of Florida, right? Like, I can't even speak about Rick Scott without everybody going, be careful. My point is, investigate and prosecute everybody. Okay. Do not try to hyper focus on like, oh, this is an immigrant problem. I don't want this to happen at all. I want it across the board investigated. Okay. That's it. This is not whataboutism. This is consistency. Having said that, the coverage that you will see here has some correct elements, like some real elements that are alarming and are suspicious, and may even tie back into the investigations that were already being conducted in Minneapolis specifically. But you will very quickly understand why the coverage takes this weird turn.
Hello, we'd like to ask where the money's going. What do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't think anybody is enabling fraud to happen.
Hold Governor Walz accountable for this.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Answer the question.
Yeah, nuisance streaming turned tuned up to 11 at this point, by the way. This is like I'm seeing a lot of dangers here.
Are there children? There's no children inside this building.
But
Potentially the largest fraud scandal in US history is taking place in Minnesota, as literally billions of dollars have been funneled through Somali-ran fraudulent businesses. So much fraud, it could actually almost replace the entire GDP of Somalia. These fraudsters have worked hand in hand with the Minnesota government as they enabled billions of dollars to be given to fraudulent businesses underneath welfare purposes. Some of this money eventually landed in the hands of terrorist groups in Somalia, like the
Do you see why I said? Do you see? Do you see why I said he's just kind of not very smart? Like he just, it's not even like I'm not even making fun of him because he's like a conservative or something, or at least portraying himself as a conservative or something. Like he just genuinely is not very intelligent.
Shabab, and others enrich themselves all at the US taxpayers' expense. And in this video we will break down all of the fraud from start to finish, from going to the fraudulent businesses and confronting the people who are making millions of dollars from the government. And we will also be confronting the incompetent government leaders who let this fraud happen. And to make this happen, I met up with a man who's been doing his own investigation.
This is always the same thing. It's always the same meta. You go to an area that is in the news, right? And you go with like a very obvious political purpose, like you have a political agenda, okay? If this investigation is to be conducted in a serious manner, right? I'm all with you. I'm right there with you. I love when ProPublica does shit like this, right? I love when Democracy Now! Or Dropsite News or numerous other independent news outlets actually take the time and go and properly investigate fraudulent activities such as this one. Okay, I cover those reporters all the time. These reporters don't exclusively cover, you know, liberal positions or leftist positions either. They just look at crime taking place and they uncover it and they investigate it. Okay, but they do it in a professional manner. And the reason why these investigations should be conducted in a professional manner is because if you do it in an unprofessional manner, specifically to cut propaganda for the Republican administration, you end up actually harming the actual investigators, the prosecutors that are looking into the situation. This is what I like to call the pedo hunter phenomena, right? The pedo hunter phenomena. When you actually do not take seriously pedophilia and the criminal investigations that must be conducted very carefully around child predators, you end up allowing a lot of child predators to fucking roam free. And you're doing it in that situation for content purposes. And it's disgusting, okay? Vigilantism unironically ends up harming the actual procedures that must take place for justice to be served, okay? If your goal is sensationalization, if your goal is clout, if your goal is to cut propaganda specifically, for, you know, JD Vance or whatever, then you're going to end up not doing the best kind of investigation. The thing is, he doesn't do investigative journalism. His video is barely above TMZ level. In fact, TMZ has superior methodology and ethics, which says a lot about Nick Shirley. Yeah, of course. And I think this is one of the unfortunate downsides of the independent media dominance that's taking place, right? There's a lot of good that has come out of this. And there are a lot of wonderful investigative reporters. There's a lot of fucking awesome news outlets out there. Obviously, I wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the internet and also independent commentary and independent journalism in general. But there's also the downsides of it, where you do the whole, like, I'm doing my own research, and then you focus not on the actual criminality or the crime. You focus more so on you focus more so on just like how Somali this style of crime actually is.
For years now, as he has seen the fraud firsthand, his name is David. Let's get into this and be prepared to be shocked. How deep is this fraud here inside of Minnesota?
It is far worse than anybody can imagine. You heard it's 7 to 10 billion and maybe more, and now the numbers have been revised and put out there publicly that they think it's more like 8 billion. How I got involved is that where my office is here in Minneapolis, I'm sort of in the heart of all of this fraud. And I would see these child care centers. I said, well, there aren't any kids there. It's the middle of the day. And all I
No, David is not. David does not have credentials. He's a concerned citizen, and this is another part of the issue here. Okay, because he's basically delegating the task of digging into this information to random concerned citizen from the neighborhood. Okay, this is again the Tyler Oliveira method. Like, you're supposed to be doing that. Okay. Proper investigative reporting dictates that what he's telling you right now, you're supposed to be doing on your own. Okay? You're supposed to be doing, you're supposed to be digging deep into the files, the data, going to the fucking local government, and then verify, or even if you get this information from, you know, some random Midwestern guy, you should probably verify it, right?
see are a couple of guys standing out front smoking. And then I'd go by another daycare and I'd see the same thing. I said, well, where do these kids play? And so I started to go online and look, and I said, this place is licensed for 80 children. They had 0 children. Every time I went by there, they never had a single child there. Then I started to see all these transportation companies going around, and it was always a Somali driver. And I said, well, that's great. They're out there transportation contributing, but they never had a passenger, never, ever once. And I said, well, what is all this transportation? What are they doing? So then I found out that in Minnesota, they have something called non-emergency medical transportation. So this is going to the dentist's office, therapy, whatever it might be. And I said, well, how many of these companies are there? And the research came back that there are 1,020 of them, and more than 800 of them are Somali-owned. Nobody from the state of Minnesota ever cross-checks to see if any rides were ever actually provided. All they did was write the check.
So right here we have all this paperwork.
By the way, there was already a audit that took place, like a professional audit that took place. Here's from Minneapolis Post. State government. What we learned from the audit of Minnesota's child care assistance program: no suitcase full of cash, but plenty of baggage. These are programs that have been audited on numerous occasions. Minnesota's legislative auditor released on Wednesday a long-awaited investigation into a subsidy that helps low-income parents afford childcare, and it was a doozy. Fraud, fighting among state workers, failed policies and subpoenas all made their way into the report's 64 pages. Naturally, state lawmakers from the two major companies used it to draw a completely separate conclusion on a program that became a 2018 campaign issue when a sensational television story tied fraud in child care centers to terrorist organizations in Somalia, something that Nick Shirley brought up in the beginning. But one of the key things that they found was that there was no actual evidence of a connection between the state's child care assistance program and Al-Shabaab or other terrorists. Okay. Having said that, they did actually find a litany of issues. This is precisely the reason why this story has never really gone away. And it's something that local reporters, independent reporters, and investigators have looked into over and over again since 2019. And of course, remember, this is 2019. What happened in the end of 2019? COVID-19, which also accelerated this sort of fraudulent activity by 1,000,000%, and not just in Minneapolis, Minnesota, but all around the country. One of the biggest examples of this, of course, is the PPP loan frauds that took place. Over $200 billion in pandemic business loans appear to be fraudulent, a watchdog says. This is an investigation from an independent watchdog from June 27th, 2023. Of the $1.2 trillion in federal aid dispersed on an emergency basis to small businesses during the pandemic, at least $200 billion, or 17%, have gone to scammers. That's the latest, most complete assessment of the potential fraud by the Office of Inspector General of the Small Business Administration, which oversaw the disbursement of the aid. Now, all of those fucking loans were basically forgiven. They were not supposed to be forgiven. They were supposed to actually have better interest rates if and only if you actually paid the employees and engaged in disbursement like you claimed you would, but many people did not do that, and yet they had their loan forgiveness. Now, that's a much larger number than we're talking about, even though, ironically enough, I'm willing to bet that a certain percentage of the Minnesota, the Minneapolis child care fraud scheme that they're talking about most likely came from that as well, okay? So just understand. A claim that the state was defrauded of $100 million could not be proven. The same goes for payments to terrorists. Last May, Fox 9 ran an investigation that claimed fraud in the child care program was rampant and perhaps even as high as $100 million a year. And not only that, but the initials, here's the other thing. Here's the other thing that's very frustrating, right? You literally cannot find a single mainstream article about the Minnesota fraud. Not even one. This is utter bullshit. Not only am I showing you one of the actual investigations that took place all the way back in 2019, but the notion that no one was in the mainstream was actually covering this news story is fucking idiotic. Of course they were. This is objectively a falsehood. The problem here, of course, is that on the right, nobody ever gets punished for lying like this. If you lie in a politically biased direction, no one ever checks you on that lie. No one ever actually even chooses to look into whether or not there's truth to this statement. This is genuinely frustrating, okay? So that's number one. How is it that a simple guy with a camera can uncover $110 million on a fraud in a single day, but a giant billion-dollar media organization behind the glass door somehow miss it for years? It's not that they couldn't find it, it's that they wouldn't, okay? This idea that mainstream news in the United States of America and in the Western world in general, because there are similar examples to what we talked about with like the grooming gangs in the UK, the notion that like police, investigators, independent auditors, and numerous other people are too woke to properly and adequately investigate the types of fraud that's taking place in Minneapolis because it's Somali Americans conducting this fraud is insane. The idea that mainstream media is refusing to cover it because of some woke reason is also insane. And it's also untrue. Okay, this got 19,000 likes. Kathy Young replied and said, "How is it that you're a liar and yet your bullshit spreads like wildfire? It is because a lie can go halfway around the world before the truth can tie its laces." Okay, to get up and report on it. Key questions about Minnesota's fraud schemes. Tim Walz can't admit the downsides of too much welfare. Opinion: welfare fraud is far too common. This is just from the Washington Post. Of course, there are plenty of people, especially in major media, that already despise welfare to begin with and want to cut welfare to begin with. Dave Weigel says, the initial New York Times story ran on 11:30 and definitely supercharged interest in the scandal. Wasn't simplistic either. Included both Garland DOJ bringing the fraud cases and the feeding our future scammers crying racism when they got investigated. So not only was the investigation covered, even the fact that the defense against that investigation featured the actual scammers crying foul by claiming this is actually racist scrutiny, not dissimilar to what we saw in the BLM stuff as well, in the BLM philanthropic structure for the international organization. There were a lot of people who kept saying, oh, this is really racist that people care about BLM. I was not one of those people. If you recall, I said BLM as a movement is valid, is correct, but the BLM organization was definitely getting up to some very improper shit. A lot of people yelled at me for it at the time. They said I was fucking racist. They said I was white supremacist for this take as well. Just so you know, while white supremacy is a real construct and certainly harms non-white people with regular frequency, there are definitely going to be instances where scammers are falsely claiming white supremacy in an effort not to have people investigate their shit. Now, does that actually matter to the investigators? I don't think so. Okay? I don't think so at all. I find it really strange that people will make it seem like cops are letting or prosecutors are letting people go because they're afraid of being called racist. This happens in the fantasies and in the minds of racist people in general. Was that a real thing that in the Minneapolis fraud case was deployed by the people that were perpetrating the criminal acts of fraud? Absolutely. How much success did it have is insane, okay? How much success that counter had is, I think, the part of the hysteria in this conversation. The hysteria is the notion that cops and investigators and prosecutors were actually being too woke.
And how are you getting all this information about the fraud?
A lot of it is through my own research. And then I have some contacts at the Capitol going back many, many years. And so the data that I'm getting is 100% accurate, coming directly from research done by people at the state capitol.
All this paperwork right here, what are we looking at?
The areas of fraud that I have numbers for are mostly related to childcare. This is massive fraud that is beyond anyone's imagination, the scope. And so, for example, there's a childcare not far from here in Minneapolis that has two childcares listed at the same address. And together, they're licensed supposedly for 120 children. I have never seen a single child there ever, and I've been by that place at least 100 times.
These Somalians, these groups are setting up these daycares, these childcare centers, getting money from the government, but there's no kids.
No kids. Never had any of them. They're all fraught with violations, and even though they have these violations, they're still in operation and they're still getting money. And it's millions of dollars for every one of them every year.
And who's getting the money? And where are they getting the money from?
So we have a thing called CCAP. It's a blend of federal and state money. The bottom line is it's taxpayer money, so it's state money and it's federal money. And the problem is the people...
I need you guys to understand something, by the way. This is very nefarious propaganda. It's not just like anti-black, anti-Muslim, anti-Somali, claiming that every single person, claiming that fraud is almost entirely done by, these pesky Somalis, right? These scary Somalis. All Somalis are responsible for welfare fraud. But the other side, this is a double Monty. The other side of this fucking issue is that it is very anti-welfare. So this is perfect for even a lot of capitalists who will claim to be anti-racist, but actually despise government spending on any sort of welfare initiatives and will take advantage of this news story to say, see, the reality of the matter is there's a lot of fraud taking place at welfare. We just have to cut it. We just have to cut welfare. Nothing we can do about it. Okay?
The state of Minnesota are the ones writing the checks. This is kind of the maddening thing is you have daycare, so you have adult daycare, and then you have child care, and then you have health care. And a lot of these same names keep coming up on all of these different types of businesses. And then, of course, we have the transportation, and a lot of those same names appear, a lot of the same addresses. There's one building that has 14 Somali healthcare companies at the same address. There's another building in St. Paul that has 20.
What are the comments looking like on this vid? Are people buying this shit? Oh, absolutely. The beauty of people like Nick Shirley and even Tyler Oliveira initially is that they get to present themselves as totally independent and not right wing at all. They get to present themselves as like, guys who basically took on the mantle of real investigative reporting because nobody would, not realizing that these guys are not fucking apolitical at all. As a matter of fact, they're basically cutting propaganda for J.D. Vance, cutting propaganda for the Trump administration. And that's the problem. I'm just asking questions, and I'm finding a lot of fraud here will play a major role. Now, for the record, in terms of like a sequence of mass fraud taking place in not just Minneapolis, but all around the country, especially at the point of like taking money from government initiatives and instead of actually reappropriating those funds to things that matter, to improving the lives of the people who are less fortunate, who desperately need said funds. Is it lining up people's pockets? Of course it is. This happens all the fucking time. It's completely unacceptable, and it's good to actually punish the people who are engaging in this. So my criticism of this sort of commentary is twofold. One, because it's like inherently anti-welfare propaganda, because the heavily implied through line throughout the videos like this is basically that like welfare is bad and we need to cut it, and it justifies the right-wing position, the right-wing framing, which isn't to fix the problem, tackle the fraudulent aspects, and make sure that people who have engaged in this sort of welfare fraud are criminalized, punished, and then it never happens again. And we make sure that we reappropriate the funds adequately so that people actually get the help that they desperately need. But it goes along with the anti-welfare propaganda that Republicans are constantly trying to cut. Okay, the bad thing is the fraud. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a black person doing the fraud. It doesn't matter if it's a white person doing the fraud. You have to be anti-fraud. Okay, the bad thing is not that it's Somalis doing the fraud. The bad thing is not that there is. The bad thing is not welfare in general that sometimes leads to people engaging in fraudulent activities off of the funds that they're getting from the government inappropriately. Okay? The crime is the crime no matter who's doing it, and it should be investigated and it should be punished. Ironically enough, and especially in this instance, in Minneapolis, they have been investigating it. Now, do I trust the current administration to conduct a proper and thorough investigation and actually find every single person that is responsible for it? Not necessarily. Unfortunately, with less confidence in the FBI, with less confidence in our prosecutors, with less confidence in our investigators, it's more and more vigilante justice is going to be enacted. And the issue here in the long term is that the vigilante justice clickbaiters. The vigilante justice clickbaiters, unfortunately, will have a hard time conducting a proper and thorough investigation, and it actually might muddy the waters. It actually might allow some of these criminals to get away.
2 Somali healthcare businesses at the same address.
And the government knows about this.
Wait, what is this? Hassan, with love but frustration, you really have no fucking clue how convoluted and confusing getting shit like SSI is. That $50 you don't report that grandma gives you, that's fraud. Saying prosecute it all when you don't know how these systems is rigged is frustrating. Please do more research. No. You're misunderstanding something incredibly important here. And I talk about it all the time. Fraud, whether it be Medicare fraud or Medicaid fraud or any kind of welfare fraud, is never conducted at the individual level. It's always systemic. Individuals might be responsible for this fraudulent activity, Rick Scott being a great example of this, but they're doing it, they're responsible in the sense that they are tasked with governing the main agency or main body or the healthcare provider that is doing the fraud. Okay? This kind of stuff is institutional. And unfortunately, because when there is not a lot of exhaustive resources that these regulators have, they go after fucking grandma and grandpa for what they consider to be fraud. It's the same principle behind the IRS. The IRS goes after small business owners because they can't go after the fucking billionaires, okay? They don't have enough money and they don't have enough power to go after the fucking billionaires, and it's much easier to go after the small business owners that are doing like low-level fraud, for example, or low-level tax evasion. And it's the same principle here as well. You don't go after the actual business owners, or rather, the actual business owners that are conducting this kind of fraud with regular frequency get away scot-free because they have high-powered attorneys that they can pay millions and millions of dollars to make sure that they evade any sort of legal scrutiny in the process. That's why I keep going back to Rick Scott over and over again. Not only free, but also working as a legislator to continue legalizing the exact type of criminal activities that he was supposed to be punished over. Okay? Do you understand? I'm a healthcare, specifically Medicare specialist in Twitch chat. You done now, bruh? What do you mean? The guys that are responsible for this kind of thing, the guys that have been investigated and charged for any sort of welfare fraud in Minneapolis are not like random people that were getting money and then, random aunts and uncles that were getting money and then like giving it to their children and then not reporting it. And they were like low level, committing what would be considered like a low level offense that under most circumstances would require like a lot of leniency in the sentencing. These are people who were directly fucking funneling. They were directly funneling government funds, state funds and federal funds into their pockets without actually having those funds properly allocated to the services they were supposed to provide. That part is fraudulent activity. It's criminal behavior. They should be punished.
Knows they're writing the checks.
But they're businesses, they're organizations that are doing this, not individuals. Like
checks.
it's not grandma and grandpa.
What has happened is that the Somali community is a very closed community. They will not speak to anyone outside the community and talk about what's going on within the community. They vote as a block, And so when you're a politician, you're saying, look, I've got 100,000 people in Minnesota that if I do something for the community, they're going to vote for me. And that's what it's all about, is getting the votes. And then the people here in Minnesota, you hear this term, Minnesota nice. I'm so sick of that term. The people here are so afraid of being called a racist or an Islamophobe. And they're afraid of their own shadow. And I don't understand. This is our future generations are going to have to pay for all this fraud. And they just want to bury their heads in the sand and go on and just not worry about it. Tim Walz saying there's organized crime in Minnesota. What did he do about it? Nothing. You got organized crime? What are you doing? This is the
the other side of this is like this is also very directed at Tim Walz as well. It's like a very anti-Tim Walz thing. I love how Tim Walz is responsible for anyone who commits a crime in the state, but Elon is not responsible for the hundreds of thousands of deaths he knew would happen after he destroyed U.S. aid. Of course not. It's not Donald Trump that's responsible. In the eyes of these people, Donald Trump is never responsible, for example. Donald Trump can only be failed, okay? Donald Trump cannot fail. He can only be failed. You know? That's just how it is. Like, and is there a duty for Tim Walz as the governor to adequately to ensure that there's like adequate prosecution? Abso-fucking-lutely. Okay? Abso-fucking-lutely. Does he have a responsibility on this? I think so. Yeah, I do. Good czar, bad boyars. Yeah.
Minnesota law, which mandates
that
anyone who knows of fraud and is a state employee must report that fraud. It's Minnesota Statute 3.971, Subdivision 9. Not only that, but Walz is also guilty of misconduct of a public employee. When I look at the world as a whole and I look at fraud, Twin Cities is ground zero. The fraud is worse here than anywhere else ever in history. Anywhere.
We're going to go confront these people. We're going to go to these daycare centers. We're going to see what's actually happening.
Okay, so we have to be careful because these people are very violent. They're exceptionally violent.
Now, with all of David's evidence, we headed out to the streets of Minneapolis to see how much fraud we could uncover in one afternoon. Where are we going now?
We're going to a place called Mako Child Care, which actually has another child care registered at the same address called Mini Child Care Center.
So we should see lots of children if there's this child care center, especially if there's two.
The two of them combined are licensed for 120.
And how much money have these child care centers received?
None of those vans have moved in 6 months. None of them. In 2020, one of them received $1.3 million. In 2021, they got $987,000. In 2022, they got $714,000. That's the last I have for that one. And then the other one, $1.604 million in fiscal year 2025. Fiscal year 2024, they got about $800,000, and in fiscal year 2023, they got $904,059. This place right here. Yes.
We're outside of it.
Well, this is actually two daycares are registered here. One of them is Mako.
You missed the violent Somalis. Is that what you said?
Careful because these people are very violent. They're exceptionally violent.
Now with all of David.
Exceptionally. What is this? I don't even like Nick. I'm not a fan of Nick, but those of you hating on him are completely wrong. You're probably incredibly naive. I don't even like Nick. Brother, you're just describing to us that the propaganda is working for you. Okay? I don't think people understand. I don't think anyone in this community, I certainly am not doing this, and I don't think anyone in this community is actually saying, oh, dude, let the Somalis do fraud, okay? No one's fucking saying that. Please understand. I am in favor 100% of criminally prosecuting anyone and everyone, regardless of their background, regardless of their ethnic background, regardless of their immigration status, to be properly charged, investigated, and then hopefully criminally convicted. Can you debunk this? No, a big part of, again, conspiracy theories require a kernel of truth or good propaganda necessarily, because this is not even technically a conspiracy theory. There are conspiratorial elements in it, like with the extension of this crime being this crime happening with every single Somali person. Okay, but the point is they're not investigating the actual corruption. They're using the actual corruption investigation to investigate the entire community. Okay,
It's evidence we headed out to the streets of Minneapolis to see how much fraud we could uncover in one afternoon. Where are we going now?
We're going to a place called Mako Child Care, which actually has another child care registered at the same address called Mini Child Care Center.
So we should see lots of children if there's this child care center, especially if there's two.
The two of them combined are licensed for 120.
And how much money have these child care centers received?
None of those vans have moved in 6 months. None of them. In 2020, one of them received 1.3 million. In 2021, they got 987,000. In 2022, they got 714,000. That's the last I have for that one. And then the other one, 1.604 million in fiscal year 2025. Fiscal year 2024, they got about 800,000, and in fiscal year 2023, they got 904,000.
What are they investigating? What are they quote unquote investigating? They're investigating whether or not these are actual real businesses or real child care centers, or they're simply getting money from both the federal government and the state government, and not actually providing the services they are claiming that they're providing. Okay? Now, part of the problem with this investigative reporting, and this is the issue when you are not a credible reporter, is that if you agree with the framing here, if you agree with the framing, you're going to look at this and go, this is the best investigative reporting of all time. If you call it into question, people will say, why do you want fraud to take place? That's not the case. My argument here is that you have to be a real investigative reporter, or at least engage in investigative reporting in a way where you clearly are presenting an unbiased narrative and not simply right-wing fucking propaganda that dictates that this kind of fraud is only happening at the hands of Somalis that are living in Minneapolis, and that it's happening because welfare is bad. If you do that, then I can't take your investigative, quote unquote, investigative reporting seriously.
$1,059. This place right here. Yes.
We're outside of it.
Well, this is actually two daycares are registered here. One of them is Mako, which you see on this sign. The other one is Mini Child Care Center. And between the two of these child care centers, they're pulling in about $3 million.
Like, here, I'll give you one example. Even if this business itself is improper, right? It is fraudulent. The irony is the way that they arrive at that conclusion, or the way that they build that narrative, is by talking about SOS filings, and showing that like the same place has two different filings. You have umbrella corporations that are a part of the same exact the same exact company. For example, you can have numerous filings for the same business. This doesn't automatically imply that there is fraud happening there, okay? There could be in this circumstance, but the very fact that you arrived at that conclusion by, or the very fact that you are, that ratio, bud, what ratio? Why do people come in here and say stuff like this? Because it derails you, probably.
$1 a year, and there are no children. Every facility that you go to, the windows will be blocked out so you can't see in. There's nobody here. You won't see a single child at any of these facilities.
There are indeed no windows. All the windows are blacked out right here. All right, let's go in. And the child care center is locked. Should we ring the doorbell?
So the other part of the problem here is, again, purely on the basis of like conducting real reporting on this matter, which is, again, a very serious crime that needs to have a proper, cohesive investigation. A proper investigation is necessary in this circumstance. But if you just like leave it up to random guy with a YouTube channel, I don't know if he's going in the middle of the day. I don't know if he's going in the afternoon. I don't know if he's like going at a time where this business actually has like children in it. And there's no way to confirm when you are doing it in a way where I don't know if he's going on the fucking weekend, when you have no way of like seeing the verifiable truth here. And it's like very clearly a one-sided bias framing, even if there is truth to the overall, the overarching criminal fraudulent activity, there is a likelihood of spreading that to random businesses that aren't actually engaging in the criminal activity. Do you understand? And of course, a lot of people will just simply say, holy cope. This is not cope. I'm telling you how this is supposed to be conducted. As someone who works with investigative reporters with regular frequency, you will never find a person that will say this kind of investigation is properly conducted. We went to a random local who had issues, and we didn't cross-reference the information that they have. We didn't cross-reference the information that they had at all, and we didn't do a thorough investigation into the claims being made at all. And we just simply went there. Who knows at what time? Who knows at what place? Who knows if it's over the weekend or not? You know what I mean? Who knows what the situation is in terms of like when they're going there? You are coping hard, guilty until proven innocent. Exactly. That's it. And the craziest part about this is that it's even more dangerous to do this with real crimes that are taking place, because then you have the capacity to fucking ruin an active investigation that's taking place potentially. Okay?
Try to get in, rang the doorbell, nobody showed up. They're open 7 days a week, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. it says here on their sign, yet there's absolutely nobody here. And this building here, right here, has generated millions of dollars, and it seems like business isn't even open right now, and it's a weekday. And if this was a daycare center, it wouldn't just be in some industrialized building. There would be maybe like a playground or something outside, or...
There's no play area for the kids. So where are the kids? Where's anybody? How can there be nobody here? And it's like this every single day. I've never seen a single child here. In 9 years, I've never seen a single child at this building. Right there.
Oh, then now...
But the facts don't care about your feelings. 250 million gone, 0 kids fed, physically impossible numbers. Trying to deflect the Florida is a weak-ass move. You're not standing up for a community. You're just a useful idiot for people who stole from their own people. Stay mad. My barber ruined my hair, 450 KR. Brother, what are you saying? Please point to me at any given moment where I've said that this kind of welfare theft is appropriate. Please point to a single time where I've said that any sort of welfare theft is appropriate. It's not a deflection at all. I don't know why people do this. And then you have this. Also, this is ChatGPT. Once again, 100% ChatGPT. I'm losing my fucking mind. You have decided that I, as someone who cares about welfare programs, want there to be fraudulent activity. You made that up in your mind. And instead of trying to understand where I'm coming from and what I'm saying about the way that this investigation was conducted, regardless of the veracity of the claims being made, you have decided, oh no, you're just, you're just mad because you want Somalis to keep stealing welfare or something. Okay?
Oh, it looks like we already got the Somalis coming through.
Yeah, they're coming. The word's out.
Hello, is this your daycare?
No. Can you tell us why there are no children? Have you ever seen children at this child care center?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Doesn't know if she's ever seen a child here. All right, let's go to the next location. And the fraud only gets more from here. Make sure you stay till the very end of this video to see exactly how much fraud we find by the time we are done. And before we go to the next location, I want to show you something super interesting about the flags of Minnesota. And here in Minnesota, if you take a look at
the flag of Minnesota
state flag, they recently changed it, and it very much so resembles the flag of Somalia. And really quick, I want to tell you guys about the sponsor of this video, Opus Clip.
Oh, I'm so glad that there is like a tremendous apolitical commentary being done here. You know, the apolitical investigators are on it.
And now let's get back into the video. Now we're going to the next daycare center. How much money has this one generated?
This one, in fiscal year 2025, $1,042,059. In fiscal year 2024, $1,059,000.
By the way, that was democratically voted on. Okay. And I'm pretty sure the person who designed it is not even a Somali person at all. It's so fucking ridiculous, though. What the fuck does the flag have to do with anything? What does the flag have to do with anything? This is similar to how you talk about heart surgery or driver's license can be described as nefarious. I know it's a big part of right-wing commentary is to be like, well, I can't, you know, I can't walk into this area. This is suspicious. Like there could be a million different reasons for it. Yeah, Minnesota had a flag redesign. Okay, Minnesota had a flag redesign competition, and a bunch of people actually put up their designs. I like the former crest, by the way. The new Minnesota flag adopted in May includes symbols specific to Minnesota and was not inspired by Somalia. The flag's designer and a flag expert advisor on the redesign told Reuters. This is just like racism-induced schizophrenia, for the record. Students raised concern about Minnesota's previous flag design in 2017. Peak woke. Concerns were shared by vexillologists who advised on the new design. The Minnesota State Emblems Redesign Commission, established in 2023 by a state house bill, presented its design for a new state flag. The old flag of Minnesota violated every principle of good flag design. Brian Cham, a North American Vexillological Association member who advised the CERC, said in an email, I hate that. Including the name of the place on its flag is lazy. It can be read while waving, and it almost seems like an admission that the flag is so unrecognizable that it needs to be labeled. Oh my God, vexillologists. Oh God, flag autists are literally... Anyway, whatever. I'm not even going to get into the vexillologists and the smoke I have for them. Luckily, they will never touch my beautiful California state flag. If they do, I will fight for it tooth and nail. Okay? I hate the minimalist flag design. I think it's lame as hell. I get so annoyed. That's a totally separate thing that I get angry at, unjustifiably, potentially. Anyway, there was a competition. There was a winning flag design. Minnesota resident Andrew Precker's submission to the CERC's design contest inspired the final flag design. In an email, Precker said his design drew inspiration from the state's history and culture. The dark blue field is the shape of Minnesota, and the light blue field represents the significance of the water in the state. The 8-point star represents the North Star, which is also the state motto, L'Étoile du Nord, as seen on the floor in the state capitol's rotunda. Cham said the new flag exemplifies all principles of good flag design. When people say, oh, the old flag was actually representative of like land theft and genocide, okay, but that's not the reason. That's not the reason why they wanted to fucking replace it with this. The reason why they wanted to replace it with this is because it's too busy. They hit it from a vexillologist angle, not even from the racism angle. And that's why I fucking hate it. I think it's fine to have busy flag design, okay? I don't think we should be held captive by vexillologists and their intense desire to make all flags look as simple as fucking possible. Hassan, you don't know shit about flags law. Whatever, dude. I had no idea flag people were this intense. Oh, you don't understand. Anyway, the point is, it has nothing to do with Somalia, okay? That is just something that an insane conspiracy theorist cooked up. And now we have to deal with it, because when the most insane person comes up with a conspiracy theory, especially one that is racialized, there are a fuck ton of people who go, yeah, that must be right. That must be right. That's probably the case. Hassan is pro complicated street signs. Fuck no. There's a difference between a flag and a complicated street sign. What are you talking about? When is the last time you looked at a flag to indicate anything but like where you're at? It's what? God damn it. I'm gonna keep yelling at my chat over the fucking the Anyway, let's continue.
$78, and in fiscal year 2023, $727,336.
This next one is literally one block away, and this one's also generated nearly $3 million in the past 3 years. Let's see if there's any children. Let's see if any of the buildings are open. Here we go. All right, we've arrived to ABC Learning Center. All the windows are blacked out. Let's see if anybody is here. This door is locked.
This facility is licensed for 40 children. 0 children. I've come by this place 100 times. I've never seen a child here, ever. The only thing I've ever seen is someone standing outside smoking.
What's crazy about this is that last daycare center is that green building right there. And the other daycare center right now is right here. these buildings should be operating, as they're receiving literally millions of dollars. I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, somebody actually answered the door. Hello? Can we speak? I would like to check a child in the daycare.
Like, normally, the normal way to conduct this investigation is, one, to obviously verify the information that he got from random concerned citizen, right? Let's say you get a random tip from a concerned citizen. You're supposed to verify it with the state. You're supposed to verify it with like investigators, call up the police, call up like local law enforcement, identify in the past state prosecutors or investigators that have actually conducted investigations into fraudulent activity at these sorts of child care centers, right? You're supposed to go to the licensing board. And then after that, you are supposed to call them up individually or try to fucking figure out if there's actually any sort of fraudulent activity taking place over a long and extended period of time. You can't just like roll up randomly in the middle of the fucking day with a camera and meta glasses to be like, can I see your children? Are there children inside? What the fuck are they supposed to know? They don't know if you're a fucking creep or a pervert. You look like a pervert. Whether or not there are actual children in there or not doesn't even change that reality. Like,
can I speak to a manager? Where can I get paperwork to file for my son? I wanted to put my son Joey in daycare. And after a few questions, the lady went silent. Looks like little Joey.
Yeah, I like that they were saying, like, there were chatters who were defending this, being like, well, he tried to check in his kid. Really, dude? Put yourself in the shoes. Let's say this is a real business. Let's say it's not illegitimate, right? It could be. It could not be. I'm not saying that this is a legitimate business. But if it was a legitimate business and someone fucking rolls up with meta glasses on deck with another guy that you may or may not have seen around your fucking kindergarten with regular frequency, constantly yelling about where the kids are, you're going to be like, no, get the fuck out of here.
Early ain't going to daycare here. And now where are we going?
Now we're going to Sweet Angel Childcare.
We're in the middle of a strip mall here inside of this neighborhood.
In fiscal year 2025, this facility, which has its license for 74 kids, was paid $1.26.
Also, I hope you guys understand there were multiple investigations and visits to this facility. Yeah, you can look it up on the licensing. Why is it not clickable? But the other side of this is like, you guys understand why this shit is dangerous, right? Because now you got not one guy, but a million other guys who are going to be like, oh, I can't wait to go to fucking Minneapolis and harass every kindergarten. Go outside of every kindergarten with my fucking camera. Okay? This creates copycats and mass harassment. There is a reason why we say vigilante justice and decentralized acts of violence in circumstances, or like adventurism, is bad, because it just completely destroys whatever social fabric existed that is necessary for normal civilized existence. Do you understand? DHS is aware of a systems issue that is preventing some newly completed documents from posting as required. This is the license holder for the ABC Learning Center. There have been numerous licensing reviews, right? 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025. That was the one that they went to last. Total capacity is 40, no restrictions whatsoever. And let's see what the last potential violations were on the outcome of the visit. Licensing review 11/7/2025. Children's records. The individual child care program for a child with a known allergy did not contain all required items. The program did not have enough information about a child's known allergy. Facility electrical outlets were not tamper-proof or shielded. Menus did not comply with their nutritional requirements. Cribs were not checked annually against the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission's websites of listings of unsafe cribs. Written parental permission had not been obtained for administering medicine or topical products. Children did not have daily access to all interest areas. Staff did not supervise the children at all times. All staff did not complete the ongoing training requirements. And the program did not comply with individual child care plan, program plan requirements. This literally means that while there are issues with this kindergarten, seemingly through this investigation, we have found out that there are actually still children that are being cared for. Because obviously, if there wasn't any children being cared for, I suspect that they would they would probably bring that up in the violations. No, you know, it's a bad daycare, but it's still a daycare. It seems. I worked for an ABC Learning Center in Washington. It's real. They're a chain of learning centers across the nation. Yeah, because remember, this is not a fucking YouTuber, right? Apparently, one of the daycares is permanently closed, and he blurred out the paper that said so. There's a difference between a proper investigation being conducted that is comprehensive and actually finds issues, okay, with a national chain of daycares like ABC Learning Center that obviously due to the profit motive, I suspect, and due to underfunding, I suspect is going to still have a litany of complications, but ones that can be addressed and is not as like world ending as there are no children there, right? But do you see the difference between a professional investigation that was conducted during the licensing review versus random YouTuber walking out there and being like, I didn't see any kids here, so it must be fake. It must not be a real place. Do you understand?
I would like to check a child in the daycare.
Like that's not an investigation. That doesn't say children were there, does it? Brother, they do in-person investigations. Unless there is a much larger, much more consequential scheme at play here where the actual state officials in the Department of Human Services in the state of Minnesota are in on the scheme. No, these violations are really bad. We shouldn't be standing for licensing stuff like this. I didn't say that, dude. Oh my fucking God. You do understand there is a fucking entire world, an entire universe between these guys have no children there whatsoever versus there are a litany of complications with some of the standards that they need to apply that they have been warned for versus there's no children there at all. Children did not have daily access to all interest areas or staff did not supervise the children at all times implies that there are children there. They are just not being supervised sufficiently. And not only that, but they also applied a correction documentation. They submitted it and it got approved. Like this immediately, guys, don't kill the party, please. What is this? This immediately disproves the main point that he's driving home, which is that there's no children there. Okay? Because if there were no children there, then there would be no way to figure out whether or not they were actually fucking supervising the children at all times or not. Do you understand? And before people say, oh, you're defending these like violations. No, I'm not. I'm not defending these violations at all. I am, however, understanding of like all of the litany of complications that come along with something as like as stringently investigated as like this sector that is like this is far more the investigations that they do into licensing of like childcare specifically is far more stringent than even like the elderly care. Like that is there are so many instances of abuse and exploitation is so fucking predatory. Like elderly care is far worse. Okay? You're making excuses for them, even though you're right 99.9% of the time and have the moral high ground with most of your beliefs. This naivete will cause people to never trust again anything you say. I understand your worries about copycats, and yeah, this Shirley guy sucks ass, but it's a legitimate issue to investigate. Because this is a legitimate issue to investigate, I think it should be thoroughly investigated and not made a mockery of for a fucking biased propagandist purpose from a YouTuber who has no interest in actually properly and sufficiently investigating it. That is the reason why I'm fucking getting mad. I agree with that. No, you don't, because you clearly don't have the fucking mental fortitude to understand that that is the point I'm making over and over again and consistently fucking reiterating it.
Where can I...
Anyway, let's get back to the other
now
one.
We're going to Sweet Angel Childcare.
We're in the middle of a strip mall here inside of this neighborhood.
Like this is also, it's a goalpost shifting. If your primary argument is that there is no children at these kindergartens, okay, at the child care facility, but then we find out through further investigation, at least conducted by the Department of Human Services in the state of Minnesota that there are actually children there, but the specific facility has met some criticism and in the investigations are for licensing criteria, okay? And you turn around and say, why are you defending the fucking lack of adequate childcare in the facility? No, I'm not defending that, but you're changing the goalpost. If my argument here is about like a proper investigation being conducted on a very serious crime, a very serious criminal accusation, okay? And that the main point of contention that they're driving home is just immediately disproven, you can't just fucking shift the goalpost to a separate problem, okay? Because this isn't just like a fake investigation that was being conducted. This is a shitty investigation that was being conducted that got retweeted by the fucking vice president, okay?
In fiscal year 2025, this facility, which has its license for 74 kids, was paid $1.26 million in tax money. And there are no kids. And all the facilities are the same way, all of them.
Let's see if anyone opens.
Yeah, let's see.
Once again, I try to find a spot for my son Joey, and they would not open the door. I want to put my son Joey in daycare, cause I need.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. Like, you could have literally done a better job with this. Even like Nick Omalana, right? Nico Omalana does a much better job with this kind of stuff. He's not a fucking like, he's not a fully fleshed out investigative reporter, but like, he does shit like this all the time, right? But it requires a lot of setup. You can't just like roll up with a fucking phone camera and just or roll up with a crew. Okay, sorry, Nico Omalana, and be like, oh, I have a kid. Open the door right now. I have my child with me. I have a child. Like, no, like if you want to do a proper investigation or even a better YouTube video on this, actually set up a fake child. Okay, actually set up an interview. Put a secret camera on your chest, go inside and have a proper conversation, figure out whether or not there are actually whether or not this is a legitimate business. Do you guys understand my point here? I hope people understand what I'm trying to say here. Rolling up like this is obviously not going to lead to any sort of real information. You're being naive because they have people in the government working for them in Minneapolis. Okay. Once again, that is a far bigger conspiracy now. And in order to tackle this conspiracy, there is a proper way to investigate it. Then you go to the authorities. Here, I'll explain it to you. We just looked at the licensing board, okay? He went to that place. He claims that there's no children. He couldn't go inside. He yelled outside of ABC Learning Center. What you're supposed to do is call up ABC Learning Center. ABC Learning Center obviously has many different locations all around the country, okay? It's a chain. You call up the chain. You say, hey, I went to this location. I wanted to actually see if there's any slots available. I have a child. I want to have them go to ABC Learning Center. It's close in proximity to my work, yada, 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 okay? First, you properly investigate whether or not ABC Learning Center is actually has children in it or not, or if they're even available for taking on new children at the ABC Learning Center. Then, if you actually have suspicion that there are no children there, even though it says that the state licensing board has shown that the total capacity is 40 children, but there's no children there, then what you're supposed to do is go to the Department of Human Services, okay? Then you're supposed to try to figure out exactly who conducted the investigation, who conducted the licensing investigation in 11/7/2025, okay? You go and you figure out who actually conducted the licensing investigation or the interview in 11/7/2025, and then you try to interview them. You say, hey, I went to the ABC Learning Center. I called up the ABC Learning Center. They said that there wasn't actually any children there, but you clearly saw some children. Can you explain to me what happened? If you want to have a fucking private camera when you're conducting that investigation, even that's fine if you want to do that. But the problem is that's conducting a real fucking investigation, and this is not that. Do you understand? Even Project Veritas has a higher standard for the malicious reporting that they engage in, and that's a propaganda operation tasked with doing hatchet jobs. We've actually devolved. Even our right-wing slop merchants have gotten worse at doing this kind of hack shit.
A spot to put my son Joey.
Is this your daycare center?
No, I work there. What's happened?
I just want to put a child in daycare, but all the daycare centers seem to be closed. No one's opening the door.
He's like directly looking at the camera. He's like, what the fuck are you guys doing here?
You work here?
I was, yeah. What's happened?
Where are the kids?
Yeah?
It says it's licensed for 74 children. Right here, state of Minnesota. Where are the kids? They got paid $1.26 million in fiscal year 2025. It says they have a capacity for 70.
All right, we're looking at this one as well. Licensing lookup. This is the other place that they went to. So the first one that we went to, ABC Learning Center, it didn't actually have like the claims that they made where there were no children there. That obviously doesn't. That is obviously not correct, right? At least according to the Department of Human Services. Now, if this conspiracy goes all the way up, now we're looking at Sweet Angel Childcare Inc. Okay, this is the other place that they went to. Well, right before their visit, and I assume they didn't just like visit, you know, on the 25th or whatever when this video was published. I suspect that they visited, let's say, a week prior to that on the 15th or something, right? Well, there was a Department of Human Services visit that took place with Sweet Angel Childcare Inc. And the facility had hazardous objects that were accessible to children. This literally means like scissors, for the record, before you freak the fuck out. Children did not have access to personal hygiene products, and the correction documentation has not yet been submitted because the licensing review took place literally, 24 days ago. Okay, just so you understand. Children did not have daily access to all interest areas. The program did not comply with first aid training requirements, and the program did not comply with CPR training requirements. Okay, a lot of these facilities are substandard, for sure, but you need to understand the main claim being made here is not that the facilities are substandard. The main claim being here is that these facilities are actually lying, that there's no children there whatsoever. Now, if there is truth to the fact that there are actually no kids there, but it seems like the Department of Human Services, okay, children did not have access to daily interest areas. Children's hands were not washed with soap and water. Oh, yeah, health practices. Children's hands were not washed with soap and water. This seems to me like there are kids there, okay? The facilities are substandard, but it seems like there are kids there, okay? The main claim that they are making is that there are no kids there, okay? This is not a defense of the substandard conditions in this daycare, for the record. This is simply countering online, without even going there, the arguments that were being presented by Nick Shirley. This is now not one, but two different facilities that they've gone to where they claim that there are no children there and they can't go inside. And then they just simply say, there's no children there. Okay? There's no kids, bro. Okay. So here's the thing, okay? Here's the thing. If there are no children at these facilities at all, okay, then this is a much, much larger investigation. There needs to be an investigation conducted at the federal level in the hands of the FBI to take a look at the Department of Human Services in the state of Minnesota. Okay? I am not saying that this is not the case. I'm not even saying that Nick Shirley is completely wrong with the claims that he is making. I'm simply saying that a proper investigation in this circumstance is not happening in the hands of Nick Shirley. Okay? Do you get what I am saying here? Because there is, at least in the hands of the state, evidence that this kindergarten, this childcare facility does actually have children, okay? Do you not understand? Don't say the shit I know you're saying, but don't tempt them. Do you not understand how nuclear of a fucking story this is? Because it's not just Medicare fraud or healthcare fraud or childcare fraud that's taking place. It's not about welfare fraud that's just simply taking place in the hands of like a couple individuals that are lying in that situation. This is a much more consequential, much larger investigation that needs to happen at this point, because it literally means that there are state authorities that are in on it. Okay? It means that there are state authorities that are in on it and that they're lying when they go to conduct licensing reviews. This is a major problem. Okay? This is a massive conspiracy at this point, which once again, a massive conspiracy at this point implies that there needs to be a way better method of investigating said conspiracy.
4 children.
When?
Where are the kids? Right here. State of Minnesota website. You work here and you don't know?
I don't know. I was there before. I don't know what's going on.
I think you're just trying to break down this conspiracy bit by bit and get ahead of it, which is fair. At first, it felt like a bad faith take, but I get it now. I'm glad that you're understanding what I'm saying. This happens all the time with, like, whenever I criticize the improper investigations conducted by clout sharks that do pedo hunters, right? That do pedo hunting content, that basically serialize pedo hunting content. There are some on YouTube who actually do proper investigations and then take that information and give it to the law enforcement, right? Like the Roblox guy. Great example of the dude that actually went into Roblox and got punished by Roblox, ironically enough, for actually conducting this thorough investigation and then handing off all of that evidence to federal law enforcement, which did fuck all with it, right? That is a good way of investigating this shit. A bad way of investigating this shit, or quote unquote investigating shit for clout, is like what Vitaly was doing, right? Like going over there and sometimes even potentially faking the pedos that they hire or whatever, or engaging in entrapment and then, you know, beating the fuck out of them, at which point you're just doing it just for clout. You're not going to be able to actually imprison a real fucking pedophile because you're so horny to cut content. That's ridiculous. Why the fuck are you allowing pedophiles to thrive? Why the fuck are you allowing pedophiles to continue roaming the fucking streets by doing shit like that? Okay? And it's the same principle here. If you don't conduct a thorough and proper investigation into this massive conspiracy, you're basically allowing people that are engaging in criminal misconduct to get away with it.
Are there any kids when you worked here?
He's there. Kids there. What's
How
up?
many?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah.
You worked here. Okay, well, then you're not of any help.
Can I put my son in a daycare here?
No, I don't know.
Can I speak to someone?
No, I don't know.
No? Yeah, I would like to see if...
Like, you have to understand, you're not a trustworthy person, okay? You're not a trustworthy person at this point. They're not going to fucking give you any information. They think you're like a freak. You're presenting yourself like a fucking weirdo with your meta glasses and your hoodie standing outside of a fucking kindergarten. Of course people are gonna be like, I don't know, dude, please get away. Please leave. Like, you have no credentials. You just fucking rolled up with a road mic on your chest and you're like, well, I can't believe they wouldn't let my freak ass into a child care facility where I'm claiming that there's no children, but we don't even know if there's no children in there or not. You have a fucking camera on you. Why the fuck would anybody let you in there? Even if the facility was closed, whether it's because of the holiday season or the facility was closed because they got dinged by the licensors for an extended period of time as they, like, you know, I don't know, make sure that the outlets are up to code or whatever, as they found, right? Or there were hazardous objects accessible to children not have access to personal hygiene products, you know, whatever the fuck, right? Even if they took the week off to make sure that they were kept up to compliance with first aid training requirements, for example, and there's no children there at that moment, why the fuck would they let you into the facility? Of course they're not going to let you into the facility. You're nobody. You're a random guy with a camera. Hey, what's up? I came with my best friend, local old man who constantly is asking, where are the kids? I want to see the kids. I would like to see some children, please. And they're not letting me into the facility. I wonder why, because you're not doing a fucking proper investigation.
I can put my son Joey here.
Who's your son, Joey?
My son Joey. Can I check out daycare center?
No!
Do you put your kid here in this daycare?
No.
There is one child in there. Yeah, I'd like to know if this is a legit business.
Me, I'm scared of you too. How come I explain everything?
You're scared of me?
Yeah.
Why? Because of my color. You said you're scared of me because of my color. Does that make you a racist?
Yeah, no.
Now the argument has moved entirely in a separate direction. We're now doing reverse racism, anti-white racism. I wonder why a Somali person in Minneapolis right now would be afraid of exactly what people like this are doing. I wonder where that fear is coming from. Probably totally a ridiculous fear. Of course, a lot of people that are watching from afar that also have the same suspicions about the entire Somali community, once again, Somali Americans, is going to go, see, this person is suspicious of him because he's onto it. Okay? I don't even, wait, because of
my color. You said you're scared of me because of my color. Does that make you a racist?
Yeah, no.
But
no.
You said you're scared of me because of my color.
I'm not saying you're racist.
You said you're scared of me because of my color. That makes you a racist. So right now, they're all.
Wait, did she say because of your recording or because of your color?
Me, I'm scared of you too. How come I explain everything?
You're scared of me?
Yeah.
Why?
Because of your recording.
Oh, she said because you're recording and pointed to the fucking collar, as in like the recording equipment that, and then the fucking lol hearing what he wants to hear. Yeah, I mean, of course. This is at the intersection of so many issues. Because as I've said over and over again, like if everyone is this dumb and this fucking primed, this tuned in, then you just, you know, if the audience if the audience is like receptive to this kind of commentary, there's not really much you can do. They'll come in here and they'll say, "Oh, you're a fucking idiot. She obviously was saying she's racist against white people." You know what I mean?
Because of my color. You said you're scared of me because of my color.
I'm not saying you're racist.
You said you're scared of me because of my color. That makes you a racist. So right now, they're all getting mad because he's showing the paperwork of this business being registered as a business. 74 children, no children. We saw one child when the lady opened up the door. So now they're all getting mad.
What was this money spent on? 1.26 million. What was that money spent on? There aren't any kids.
Yeah, lots of cuts where she's like replying. We don't even know what she said. This is why it's easier to use immigrants as scapegoats because they can never defend themselves correctly. Yeah, there's also like the obvious language barrier here at play as well. And also he has complete control over the edit. This is what like, this is a big part of the problem with like also the way that Project Veritas operates as well. This is an even shittier version of Project Veritas, low key. But it still has like the same Project Veritas elements. Like even with her being like, "Oh, you're recording," like that's basically the way she said it. But like he said, "Oh, you mean my color?" And then she doesn't even understand exactly what he's responding with. She's like, or even if she did respond in a way to say, "No, you're recording," for example, it's cut out, so we don't even know what the fuck she actually said.
Kids.
Well, then why are you talking for the owner if you're telling me to talk to the owner?
I'm sorry.
The interaction is shit, but that's not the main point. I mean, these are all pieces of the proof that they are laying, right? Oh, they're being suspicious. Of course, this is a part of the narrative here. Oh, we went to a childcare facility. We didn't see any children when I tried to forcefully enter the childcare facility. And then some people that work there or worked there in the past or currently work there were trying to be like, "What the fuck are you guys doing?" And they got frustrated, even though we're just like recording everything, and it's understandable to be fucking frustrated in that situation. Like, close your eyes and imagine this being white people, okay? And you'll understand why it's a problem if you can't see it with like Somalis, okay? Like imagine, I don't know, like a woke guy trying to fucking enter a childcare facility. So yes, they may be acting in bad faith, but is the claim wrong though? If the claim is that there's no children there, according to evidence that has a much higher degree of priority here in the hierarchy of evidence that we look at, according to the Department of Human Services and the investigations that they've conducted, as they do for licensing review over and over again, once a year, right? There are kids there. So yes, the claim that they're making for at least two of these facilities are incorrect. That there's no children there is incorrect, unless, and he even said he saw one kid in the facility, but that's, you know, she said your caller, not recording. Whatever. I don't think she said your caller. I think she's because there's multiple syllables that she blurted out, but it doesn't even fucking matter.
I'm not understand what you're talking about.
Do you have a child here?
No.
Does anybody?
Where
are the 74 kids? Did you lose them?
Wait. Okay. Again. I love this accusation. The reason why I love this accusation is because what you're saying is that rather than every single year when they conduct these random visits, right? And it's not always at the same time, as you've seen, and they've done it multiple times. There's been a technical assistance review in 2022, then there's a licensing review, another licensing review in 2022, twice in the year 2022, and then once in 2023, once in 2024, okay? They're just finding children, like random children that they're bringing in. 74 of them, right? 74 of them to get together to make it seem like they have an operational child care facility, okay? The licensing can occur with no children present. What's your point? Yeah, except clearly the licensing did not occur with no children being present at this point because they say children's hands were not washed with soap and water. So unless they're fucking hallucinating the children that were not washing their hands with soap and water, okay? Did they invent the children? Did they bring the children, but then simply did not wash their hands with soap and water? Is that what happened? I mean, what would you do for a few million? They got to keep the funds rolling in. Brother, you have to look at this as what's more likely, okay? And if your suspicion in this situation requires a much grander conspiracy, then it's probably the simpler explanation that this person's underlying assessment or this underlying claim is probably incorrect, okay? It's okay. It's all right. Maybe some of the other facilities are fraudulent, but so far, the two that we've looked at, right? The two that we've looked at, there is more evidence to suggest, unless there is a much grander conspiracy here where the state is also involved, right? The state is also involved in the cover-up, right? Because one of the places we're already charged with fraud, though, great, okay? Then they should have done a proper investigation into that one rather than all of these other facilities that seemingly, according to Ilhan Omar, may be involved. You can say that there are people working for the human services of the state. Yeah, it's based on total capacity, not active roster, by the way. I know. It doesn't mean that it's like fully booked anyway. I love how people think that leftists would be okay with people committing mass fraud on safety nets. I know. They just think that, like, in their minds, they think I'm defending people stealing from welfare funds because it's potentially Somali people stealing from welfare funds, not understanding that I don't give a fuck what someone's background is. White, black, brown, Somali, doesn't fucking matter. There is no theft from welfare funds that is appropriate, okay? I think they should be criminally charged after conducting a proper investigation. The issue that I have with this video so far is that this is not a proper investigation. This is something that is presenting itself as a proper investigation for the dumbest people to fucking get on board with by leaning into a whole bunch of different speculative aspects without actually following a through line that in a careful manner that would actually crack open a case such as this one. Because if the claim that they're making is that there's no children here and they're lying, right? And if that claim is true, that means that the investigators that are looking into the facilities are also in on the conspiracy. Now it's a much larger conspiracy that requires members of the state to also be properly charged and also investigated and potentially convicted by the federal law enforcement. Do you not understand? You sound worse than Candace? What do you mean worse than Candace? They're not stealing. This is how city contracts work. Holy shit, this is so annoying. You sound worse than Candace. Brother, sister, the emperor. I'm saying that if the claims being made are real, it requires thorough investigation because now all of a sudden there is a much broader, much larger conspiracy that involves the state. Okay?
Did you lose these kids? Do I need to call someone? Do I need to issue an Amber Alert for missing children? Are these children missing? It's not my business that children are missing. 74 infants and
You're right on the hand, but I do need to say, play devil's advocate here. If this was Israel-backed daycares being called out for this, I think you would lean more towards, wait, do you think this is Somali-backed daycares? Like the government of Somalia is backing these daycares? Number one, I never said that. Number two, you're fucking stupid. I'm not defending this at all. Okay, listen. If I just fucking call you a pedophile, okay, and just keep calling you a pedophile in a fucking YouTube video, and then you get frustrated and you go, oh, I'm not a pedophile. I go, see? This is not sufficient evidence. I think you are a pedophile. Do you feel like that would be appropriate? Do you feel like I conducted an actual fucking investigation? What do you mean? I'm not defending the fucking potential of fraud taking place here. Obviously not. You're right, Hassan. But if this was against Palestinians, you'd be okay with fraud. Yeah.
Preschool.
The proof's right there. There's no children anywhere.
You are hand waving this video because of the Zoomer cloud chasing. You are being pedantic. By the way, I looked up the daycares in the state, and virtually every single one has yearly reviews and violations. To put this into perspective, the question I have is, why didn't he put that in here? Or if he did, what kind of investigation did he actually conduct after the fact to try to figure out whether or not the state is actually also involved in this fucking conspiracy? Because I'm not saying that there's no likelihood that this couldn't be like a comprehensive conspiracy, but it would involve the state at that point. Okay? And especially if the state was involved in the conspiracy, why the fuck are they making up like fake violations then when they're doing their licensing reviews? Is that also a part of the grand design of this conspiracy, where they're like finding fake fraud or fake license issues so that they throw you off the trail? Is that what it is? Is this like a part of this grand conspiracy, or is it perhaps the initial claim might not be correct?
Right here.
It's come
All
away.
right. I think we're moving on to the next location. Have a good day. As we continue to show the blatant fraud that was taking place here in Minnesota, Somalis started following us around the city.
And now we're being followed by the Somalis. This is another daycare center, absolutely no signage, and there's no footprints in the snow.
Yeah, bro, that doesn't even look open. Like, I think that one might not be
Somalis,
open at all,
daycare
actually. They literally have fencing around it.
Center, absolutely no sign.
Like, oh wait, it does have fencing. It does have a door into it. Never mind.
Signage,
Also, there is
and
footprints.
There's no footprints
What the
in
fuck?
the snow of children.
Wait, what? Wait a minute.
Another daycare center.
I only saw this part. I didn't realize that there was a door there, and I thought it was like a closed business. No, there is literally there is a gate. There's clearly footprints going in and out. Okay, do we have the state investigation into this one? Okay, we're looking at the licensing lookup of this one now. This is the third one that we're looking into. Child care center address, Minnesota Best Child Care Center. Imagine being a state investigator, seeing this video, and now your 8 months of work is gone because the actual fraudsters are on high alert. 3/17/2025 licensing review. The program space was not clean. Equipment and furniture were not in good repair. Documentation was not available to show that a teacher did not meet the qualifications. And then the correction documentation was submitted and also approved. It seems that this child care facility is actually intact. They were also fined in 2024. Equipment and furniture were not in good repair, corrected on site. The program did not submit a background study requested Department of Homeland Security when required. Then they submitted the correction documentation and it was approved. Area used by children were not in good repair. Correction documentation was submitted and approved. I'm wondering if all these places look so shitty because they needed to make so many so fast. Oh, sorry. DHS is not Department of Homeland Security. Department of Human Services. The front door of a daycare is always locked. To come in, you have to have a child there, and to be on the list to pick up a child and to be able to identify yourself to do so. These are heavily regulated for obvious reasons. It's not the place to do a completely made up fraud scheme. Nobody just shows up to visit. Yeah, well, people do show up to visit, pedophiles, and now apparently right-wing content creators that want to do the new Pizzagate, this time on random kindergartens in Minneapolis.
And there's no footprints in the snow of children playing outside. $5 million within the past
5.9 million in 2 years. 5.9 million they received in 2 years. That facility right there.
And now we have a group of Somalis telling us in our vehicle right now.
From this daycare center, we headed over
Yeah,
to...
bro, they think you're pedophiles. Like, what do you mean? Kind of you to call him a content creator? Like...
the infamous Quality Learning Center, which actually spells Quality Leering Center on the outside of their sign. That's how blatant this fraud is here at this daycare.
Don't open up!
So this is Quality Leering Center. I meant to say Quality Learning Center.
Don't open
They
up!
said they spelt learning wrong.
Don't open up!
How do you have ice here, ma'am? I'm literally a YouTuber.
Don't open up!
Oh, this lady thinks it's ice. Oh, they have a lot of investigations. Yeah, there was a licensing investigation and a licensing review that took place. The floor plan did not contain all required items. Staff did not supervise the children at all times. The program was not operating within the terms of the license. And then there's another licensing review that takes place. And they've gotten dinged multiple times. Okay? This would have triggered a hard lockdown at the preschool I worked at. He's going to traumatize children doing this. I mean, luckily he doesn't actually enter any of the facilities. So I don't think any of the fucking, I don't think any of the children were actually traumatized in this situation. Areas used by children were not in good repair. Crib mattresses and other sheets did not meet safety requirements, and or items were in a crib or infant under 12 months. Written parental permission had not been obtained for administering medicine or topical products. The program did not follow healthcare providers' written instructions when administering prescription medication. Again, all of this stuff, there were proper documentation after the fact. Correction documentation was submitted and approved. I think you should make a little note on that it is far and way more common for these places to get violations than to not get violations because the codes are very strict. Yes. I know I'm sure that there are some people in the chat that work in facilities such as this one. So you already know that this is one of the most aggressively, while it's still oftentimes underfunded. Your whole take on this should be shared widely because the comment section on this video is so apparently gross and racist. My take on this will not be shared widely. My take on this will, people will clip whatever they clip out of this conversation where I'm like responding to someone and will immediately say Hassan actually wants criminal fraud and misconduct to take place when it's actually Somalis doing it because he hates white people and he thinks like black people can do no wrong or some shit. It'll be because the starting point of this argument is like heavily racialized, very white nativist, that the additional arguments that will come along with it will not actually recognize what I'm criticizing here. Okay? They will try to make it seem like I'm defending it. Even there are chatters in here who think I'm defending it. There are long-term community members in here who think I'm defending the criminal misconduct that's taking place. I'm not. Okay? I am, however, looking at the likelihood that the claims that Nick Shirley is making are accurate by matching it up against an investigation that was conducted in virtually all of these places, considering that childcare is heavily regulated by the state. Okay? It's heavily regulated by the state in each individual state. Obviously, there's differences in the regulation on a state by state basis, but this is one of the. If you're trying to create a narrative, if you are trying to create a narrative that there is like mass fraud taking place, this is perhaps one of the worst industries to claim it because of how much the state obviously has to do upkeep and to maintain proper licensing because they're taking care of children. It's like schools and kindergartens and places like that. Childcare facilities are some of the worst places to do fraud in. If you're going to do, like, it's like if you're going to money launder, you purchase a laundromat, right? If you're going to money launder, I think an area where it's not a cash-only business, is one of the worst places to do money laundering in, right? Like you buy a car wash or a fucking laundromat and you do a cash only business, right? You don't do money laundering in a heavily safeguarded and heavily regulated business that has no cash coming in, right? For example. Now, having said that, once again, extravagant claims require an unimaginable amount of evidence. Okay, you can't just like fucking run around and be like, oh, these guys are doing mass fraud at these places, and then the investigation that you try to do in this situation is just like knocking on the doors of fucking random kindergartens or childcare facilities and be like, where is it? Where are the children? Where are the children? You know, that's fucking ridiculous.
Ma'am, what do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Don't open up! We have ice!
And what do you think about this place being licensed for 99 children
Don't open up!
and getting $4 million
Don't
over the
open up! It's ice!
$4 million in the last 2 years?
Go away!
What do you think about that? Are you in
Go
favor?
away!
Are you in?
Yeah, you're missing a major part of this. You should mention that there's a massive chance that they're only showing the ones that look suspicious and excluding the ones that have nothing to do, point at. If this is the best they could come up with, that's embarrassing for their narrative. Yeah, ironically enough, it's heavily relying on vibes overall. The vibes of the audience to believe that there is like this extraordinary amount of fraud taking place, and there is no proof whatsoever of the claims being made at all. And there's actually counter narratives, or at least evidence that is a significantly higher. Then why are they blacking out? Why are the windows blacked out if it's a legitimate kindergarten? Wait, what? That's the reason why you think it's a fake kindergarten? Because the windows are blacked out and the doors are locked? Maybe because they don't want fucking pedophile peeping toms looking in. What do you mean? That was the reason why you were sussed out? Yeah, that's not weird at all. Sunlight is good for the children, bro. Oh, a lot of people apparently keeps getting said by these bots. It doesn't cost $4 million to take care of 5 kids. Okay, now we're doing like cost analysis and shit. Okay, again, if you think that they are improperly spending the money, that's entirely different. But that's not the claim being made. The claim being made here is that there's no children in these facilities at all. The claim being made is that there's no children in these facilities. There's obviously evidence that there is children according to the state, the Department of Human Services, and the licensing investigations that they have conducted. There's obviously children there. So now you're moving the fucking goalpost. Atrioc blanket endorses video this morning is disappointing, to be honest. Oh, the thing that I'm frustrated by is that there is probably at least one of the places that they went to that is actually suspicious or doesn't fucking meet that same standard. Okay. So far, all we can do is either look at the evidence and look at the actual state authorities that have done licensing videos, not licensing videos, sorry, licensing investigations over and over again. And if there is evidence to suggest that the state is lying, then they're involved in this much grander fucking conspiracy. Okay? Those people need to be punished too. The people at the Department of Human Services also need to go to jail if that's the case.
Favor of that?
Go away!
You know
You're not welcome here. Shame on you.
Are you in favor of $1.9 million going illegally, fraudulently to this business that has quality learning center but can't even spell learning right on the door?
Don't open up!
Ma'am, we are not ICE.
I don't care who you are, you don't belong here.
I belong here just like you belong here.
Don't open up! It's ice!
You do realize that...
Verify the Atrioc claim, don't trust chat. I know, I'm going to watch the Atrioc video in a second. I think the reason why they're saying that is because he basically gave a lot of credence to the claims that this guy was making initially, because there is also evidence of widespread fraud, welfare fraud in particular, in Minneapolis. But that's why a good propagandist, even if they're not very intelligent, can lean into already pre-existing instances of fraud to create a much grander narrative, a much grander conspiracy. And you have to be very careful with the way that guys like this conduct themselves.
There's supposed to be 99 children in here at this building, but there's no one.
You don't know if there's no one in there.
Here. This is a child daycare
Minnesota
center.
says 99 children. Paid $1.9 million this year in CCAP funding.
Like, look. You say there's no one in there, and you point to the parking lot, okay? And at first you go, wait a minute, there's not a lot of cars there. Then you realize there are some cars there, specifically the fucking, and also that doesn't mean that there's 99 children there at all times. That means that the total capacity is 99 children. I don't know how many fucking children are supposed to be in there. But of course there's not going to be any cars there because kindergartners don't drive for their own vehicles to the fucking kindergarten, okay? To the child care facility.
Do you know where the children are? Were they kidnapped? They run away? Where are the children?
And this one has been dinged the most, so they might actually be fucking, their next renewal is in December, but I don't even know if they're still in service, okay? This one had a litany of violations. This guy also immediately goes, what are they, kidnapped? I just returned. Did our heroes manage to ogle some kids at this point or not? No, they have not been able to. They have not been able to ogle any of the children.
This is state of Minnesota. Right here.
And who are you?
My name's Nick Shirley, ma'am.
And who are you with?
Nick Shirley. Nick Shirley on YouTube.
Yeah, so who are you with here?
Oh, he's just been doing some research investigating the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm with Nick Shirley.
This lady, she's calling us ICE. We're just trying to put law and order back in the streets of the United States.
That's how TikTok responded.
Get rid of all the fraud. Have you ever seen children at that daycare center right there?
Where?
Yeah, it's right there. It says the child, you've never seen. Fraud is taking place within the government and the Somali population. Here, this building alone, Quality Learning Center, is a daycare, yet they spelled learning wrong, and they said leering. This daycare alone in 2025 has received $1.9 million from the government. And the strange things about these childcare centers is there's no one here right now. It's midday on a weekday. If you were to try to go inside, it's completely closed and the windows are all blacked out. No one's working. Midday. Children should be in here, and this place is licensed for 99 children.
We about to fact check this first. If you mess with me, make sure you hit that follow button. Let's get it. What the hell is he talking about? First, the reason why you don't see any kids there on a midday is because they're permanently closed. Which makes me wonder, why didn't you show nobody what it said on that door? And I tried to read it, but you literally blurred it out. Now, the reason why they're closed isn't because of fraud, it's because they're a bad daycare center. I mean, if you was an actual journalist, you would have been able to find all the
There you go. They spelt learning wrong, so they made the sign themselves. Yeah, I mean, I think you can get a pretty solid indication of the lack of interest. The blackout windows is normal. My daughter's pre-K has blacked out windows. You have to be a parent to go inside to be able to see the kids. Yes.
They had since 2022. Their last investigation was in July. See that all the violations are related to child safety, which is why the facility has been in probation multiple times, which makes me believe that that paper up there is a sanctioning paper. I know this because that's one of their violations that they didn't post it up. And if you see,
wait.
This was in July. See that all the violations are related to child safety, which is why the facility has been in probation multiple times, which makes me believe.
Wait, there is a piece of paper on the door when they walked up to it? Oh, there is. Wait, you can kind of see what the paper says here. Let me see if I can zoom into it. I wonder if we can see it. It's like too blurry. I don't know if that facility is actually closed or not. I don't know why that TikToker is saying it's closed. It could be. Right click to save a frame. No, it doesn't. It's not blurred necessarily, but it is not. You can't really see it. He showed a Google Maps page for the center. He looked it up on Google Maps and it said permanently closed. Let me see if I can find it on Google Maps. Let me see. I'm not. Let's see if I can find it. Quality Learning Center, Minneapolis. Quality Kids Care Center is closed right now, but that's not the one, I don't think. Fuck, I have to pee. Community Child Care Center. It's not showing up. I don't know where he got that information from. Notice he never reads the paper himself, which would be the most obvious thing to do if you're trying to get more info on the place, probably because it disagrees with his narrative. I mean, I don't even know if it's like, it's in the TikTok. I don't care. I want to do it on my own. I want to fucking properly investigate it on my own. I want to actually see if there is if the claim is accurate. Because this one says Quality Learning Center, but it says it's a mosque and it says it's open 24 hours, so it's not correct. The link that you linked me is clearly not correct. Kind of suspicious that I look up this place and the most recent reviews from 45 minutes ago, it's a mosque now. I'm going to keep checking back to this location to see if all the fraud stuff is actually happening. Yeah, they very clearly started they made a new fucking point on the address. Someone made a new address or new point of interest on Google Maps after this video came out. You have to be a little bit smarter than this, okay? People can just like edit shit on Google Maps. 62 investigations underway involving federally funded Minnesota child care centers. This is from January 28th, 2025. State records show the Quality Learning Center daycare still received $7.8 million in federal tax money since 2019. Despite these regulatory issues, its conditional license was removed. This is the one that they're talking about. So its conditional license was removed in 2024. Another business in Minneapolis, Minnesota Child Care Center, had 36 violations between 2021 and 2023, some of them serious. The Child Care Center's violations included failure to request initial background checks on 6 staff members. Minnesota House Speaker designate Representative Lisa DeMuth told 5 Eyewitness News this showed oversight is seriously lacking. DeMuth asked, are we keeping kids safe in Minnesota? And what you have showed me here brings that very much to the question. DeMuth also said the legislature needs to take a closer look at the information provided by 5 Eyewitness News. So once again, this also goes against the initial argument that a lot of right-wingers were claiming, which is that it's not showing. It's not showing. These guys don't care about this. These guys don't care about this. Clearly, people have investigated this. Actual investigations, okay? Actual investigations have been conducted, okay? DHS licensing monitors licensed child care centers like Quality Learning Center for compliance with licensing or certification requirements, including health and safety standards. This monitoring is conducted during an unannounced annual visit. For the chatters who are wondering how the licensing is conducted, it's an unannounced annual visit. And the results of the visit, including the type of visit, date of visit, and any violations are posted on the DHS licensing information lookup site. So for the chatters who were saying, what if they bring children in on the day of? What if they bring children in on the day of? Unless they are literally telling the facilities that they're bringing in investigators right before they do it because they're a part of the grand conspiracy, you know, there are obviously children there. It's just that these facilities, some of them are dog shit. They're not fraudulent in the sense that they're not fraudulent in the sense that there's no children there and there's just like empty buildings that they're just like and they're farming a lot of welfare. They're farming a lot of funds from welfare. It's just that they are actually getting funds from welfare. There are children there, but some of these facilities are in substandard conditions, which is the reason why there was an investigation that was conducted. And the place that he went to actually was revoked of his license. Having poor standards and running an entirely fraudulent business where there's no children, which is the claim being made here, are two separate issues, okay? To be fair, it seems like part of the scheme was regulators not really looking into most of these places and mostly just taking the word of the organization for it. Not that this kid is actually doing the work necessary to prove that for these ones. Yes, but you understand that there is a entire world of difference between the investigators are not also properly conducting the licensing, like the regulators are not doing their jobs again, versus there are no children there, which is ironic because it goes back to my argument, which is that there needs to be proper regulation and the authorities need to actually ensure that the regulators are actually tasked with doing the proper regulation. Okay. So just understand that, like, if there is some serious crime taking place here, some serious fraudulent activity taking place here, then the appropriate measures that need to be taken require the federal law enforcement to actually go through and hold the Department of Human Services in the state accountable for not doing their due diligence. Okay? Corrective actions, the child care. Okay, so when it's determined that one or more licensing violations occurred, a correction order may be issued. The correction order lists citations of the violations and specifics for corrective actions the child care provider must take. Programs are typically ordered to correct the violation immediately. The Department of Homeland Security also evaluates the nature, severity, or chronicity of licensing violations and the effect of the violation on the health, safety, and rights of persons served by the program to determine whether a more serious sanction, such as a conditional license, is warranted. No, I mean the places that did not have any children, which is true for some. I don't know about the other ones in this video, though. Nick certainly has not proved it. It seems that there was no due diligence done and they just signed off on whatever. Well, the problem is, if the Department of Human Services is literally saying that there are a litany of different licensing complications that they found without actually seeing any children that are in violation of the like health standards, for example, then they're just making up children that are there. And because no person that actually works in the child care facility is going to turn around and tell the fucking Department of Human Services guy, be like, yeah, we got kids here, but also they don't wash their hands, you know, so they can get dinged, right? So they can have if they are running a fraudulent operation where there's no kids whatsoever, then obviously it's not in their best interest to invite additional scrutiny into their licensing investigation. Okay? Do you understand? This isn't to say that there is no fraud happening. I need to say this over and over again. I'm not saying that there's no fraud happening. As a matter of fact, there is definitionally some of these child care facilities and many other places in Minneapolis have been investigated thoroughly and have been found to engage in fraudulent activities. Okay? This is true. This is real. But the argument that is being made by Nick Shirley and now being parroted by the right is that this is happening in virtually all of the child care facilities that are run by, I guess, Somalis. I don't even know if they're all run by Somalis or not, but that's the claim that they're making. And that this is a Somali-style fraud. Somali U.S. citizens of Somali descent. A conditional license requires compliance with special terms of the program to continue to operate. Licenses are also conducted additional reviews during the conditional license period to monitor for compliance with the terms of conditional license and the health and safety standards. But like I said, the one that he went to last where he says there's no children there, well, it turns out that one...
Walls and state lawmakers
here, you know what? Let's just watch this real quick because this is a real investigation from January 28th in the beginning of this year in 2025. Now, maybe you will understand there is a difference between a real investigation, if you see a real investigation in the same exact facility, the singular facility in question here, and whatever Nick Shirley was doing, so that you can understand, you know, what real journalism, investigative reporting actually is supposed to look like.
Government programs after scandals questioned their oversight.
We got complaints about the Child Care Assistance Program and took a closer look at some of the daycare centers receiving millions of your taxpayer dollars. And we found reports of violations state investigators called a threat to the safety of children at centers that continued to receive those federal dollars.
Jay Cole spent months looking into these issues, and he joins us now with what he's found in a story you're seeing first on 5. Jay.
Yeah, Lindsay, CCAP is a $34 million state program that receives federal funding. It benefits more than 12,000 low-income families each month across the entire state. Learning of growing concerns about the program from sources at the Capitol, I started looking into some of the daycares receiving the most money. Despite many serious safety violations over multiple years, they continue to receive funding. And now some state lawmakers want an investigation into what they call a lack of oversight of the CCAP program. I started by visiting Quality Learning Center Daycare. So it is that 14B. Which sits right in the heart of downtown Minneapolis. Between 2019 and 2023, the Minnesota Department of Human Services found 95 violations at this location. They range from failure to keep hazardous items away from children to no records for 16 children, which include things like immunizations, emergency contacts, and medical needs. So state investigators placed Quality Learning Center on a conditional license in 2022. I went to the daycare's location several times, and only once did I see people there. Oh, that's your daycare. But I did not see any children. So there are 80 kids in there?
No.
After school? Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you. DHS declined an interview, but in a statement acknowledged Quality Learning Center.
Look, just proving Nick's point. Brother, you understand that the entire argument doesn't rely on him visiting the outside of the facility, right? No, it's not a whole different video. It's the right building. It's the right building. It's just the front of the building. You get that, right? You understand that if there is additional points of evidence, then yeah, no shit. There is a validity to the suspicion. You intentionally misunderstand everything, don't you? Brother, he didn't do any of this shit.
On a conditional license because of its poor safety record, but it still received nearly $8 million in taxpayers' money since 2019. Its conditional status removed in 2024. I also went to yet another facility, the Minnesota Child Care Center in this South Minneapolis building. I found it at the end of this small hallway with a steel door, no windows, and no visible security cameras.
That's the sign for the place.
State records show between 2021 and 2023, the daycare had 36 violations, some of them serious. They failed to request initial background checks on 6 staff in 2023 and failed to request repeat background.
Yeah, the journalist investigated the records first, then verified by going to the site, and then attempted to get interviews from owners. And not only that, but also he actually goes through the licensing process.
Checks on 8 staff in 2024. Ultimately, the state would accept corrective documentation on the.
Like, if Nick was a reputable reporter, he would at the very least show that the Department of Human Services has actually conducted investigations at random, right, and found licensing issues, right? In the licensing investigations that they conduct yearly, they found a litany of issues. This actually would prove his argument, right? If his argument is that, like, these are substandard facilities, they're dog shit, they're getting a lot of state funds, and they're just like not doing the appropriate, not taking care of the children appropriately, all this stuff, okay? But that's not what he's doing. He's saying that there's no children at any of these facilities, all this stuff, right? And he's not even showing the Department of Human Services actually conducting licensing investigations throughout the years. He's just simply saying there's no children, there's no children, there's no children. And if there's no children, and yet there is licensing investigations that have been conducted, then you actually have to continue along with your investigation and now also investigate the Department of Human Services for the state. Because now this is a much larger conspiracy. Now it's no longer just about these guys duping the state. Now the state is also involved. So the regulators also have to be investigated and audited, okay? I have repeated this point, I think, 1 million times at this
violations.
Now. Wasn't anybody here last time either.
I visited several times, and each time no apparent sign of any workers. And each time, no apparent sign of any children.
Do you think there's anybody there?
Since 2018, Minnesota Child Care Center, however, received $11.5 million in CCAP money. I asked DHS why daycare centers could still receive millions of dollars with questionable safety records over multiple years. In a statement, DHS said under state law, they can only stop payment, quote, when a provider intentionally gives false information or submits false attendance records.
There you go. There you go. Now, that's the claim. The claim is that there's false attendance records, right? If there is false attendance records, that is the claim that Nick is making. And if this is true, and once again, I'm not saying it's not true, but if it's true, then that requires additional investigation, this time with the Department of Human Services.
Provider is operating after a suspension or revocation of its license. There's a credible allegation of fraud and/or a provider refuses access to attendance records.
What does that say to you?
It says that the oversight is incredibly lacking.
I shared our findings with House Speaker designate Lisa Dameth.
Are we keeping kids in Minnesota safe? And what you're showing me here brings that very much into question. You know, Jay, you have pages here that are publicly available with repeated failure to keep hazardous items away from children, failure to maintain adequate staff-to-child ratios, background checks.
Yeah, none of this, by the way, implies that there's no children there, for the record.
Failing to keep personnel files. These are repeated violations.
Which, again, is a problem in and of itself, okay? This is a problem in and of itself.
As I was looking into the daycare center violations, I also found a connection between CCAP and the Feeding Our Future scam, which bilked $250 million from the state. In 2023, a man named Abdikadir Kadaya was charged with stealing $1 million in taxpayer money in the Feeding Our Future case. He's waiting to be sentenced after pleading guilty to wire fraud. But we also learned Kadaya also operated Intisar Child Care Center in Minneapolis. The facility received $1.8 million in taxpayer funds between 2017 and 21. but the license was revoked at Kadaya's daycare was shut down. He has not been named or charged with any crimes connected to CCAP, however. Now, I've been asking for weeks why Kadaya's
Clearly, there's a mandatory staff-to-child ratio that requires a certain salary, which only goes up based on capacity. Yes.
license was revoked. Late tonight, DHS sent over this 86-page document explaining why. Some of the more serious reasons include violations directly related to the health and safety of children and providing false and misleading information to DHS.
I'm surprised that the fake reporter here, obviously compromised, didn't bring up how Somali this crime was and how it ties back to Al-Shabaab and also the state flag that is now the Somali flag. It's just strange because I feel like those are some of the more important parts, or about how violent the Somali people are, the nature of the Somali Americans.
DHS also told me they have 62 active CCAP investigations for family child care and child care centers. And as far as the 2 daycare centers in our story are concerned, I reached out by phone to the names and numbers listed as the licensed operators, and I've not yet heard back. So some new information that there are now 62 active investigations into that program.
Yeah. So notice how there are already active investigations that started in the beginning of January. So the very notion that that there is no investigations being conducted whatsoever, or that there's like widespread abuse taking place in the way that they're claiming is taking place, is a little incredulous. Some of these places were just fronts with no children and just staff on paper. Not sure about the ones in this video though. Yes, there was already an active investigation that took place, specifically with the other welfare fraud philanthropic organization that he mentioned in the video. Some of those were also involved with childcare. Okay, but what these guys are doing is basically. These guys are, what they're doing is basically claiming that all of the childcare facilities that they went to is all fucking fake. It's all bullshit. They all made it up. And if there is evidence for this, right? If there's evidence for this, and this is not exactly, as you can probably tell from the vibes overall, this guy's not exactly a woke lord, okay? It's local news. But having said that, the fact that there's already something that has been in the news over and over again, and there is and that there is already active investigations taking place, they're making it seem as though this is just like widespread abuse that got no fucking attention whatsoever. So even on that front, the narrative is bullshit. The narrative is fake.
Nick Shirley on YouTube.
Yeah, so who are you with here?
Oh, he's just been doing some research investigating the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota.
Yeah, I'm with Nick Shirley.
This lady, she's calling us ICE. We're just trying to put law and order back in the streets of the United States.
Bro, this is my least favorite type of chatter. Look. Great investigation by Jay. Glad Nick brought more eyes to this issue. Brother, that is literally what J.D. Vance said about Haitians eating cats and dogs. Okay? Remember when J.D. Vance went on television and was asked by Dana Bash why he lied about Haitians eating cats and dogs? And he said, well, sometimes you got to lie to bring attention to an issue. That's fucking absurd. Okay? The fuck do you mean? That investigation that we just looked at from the local news broadcaster was in the beginning of this year, okay? 12 months before this video came out. Stop being a fucking
Get rid of
bot.
all the fraud. Have you ever seen children at that daycare center right there?
Where?
Yeah, it's right there. It says the child. You've never seen daycare.
I haven't seen anybody in there.
We're going to educate you on something. So what do you think about this daycare center? They spelled learning wrong. They've received over $1.9 million this year alone, and they're supposed to have 99 children here.
I don't see it.
99 children.
Have you ever seen any children here?
None, not at all. None.
This year they got 1.9 million. Last year they got 1.5 million of your tax money for 99 children. We just want to know, where are the kids?
Right.
Where are the children?
I don't see them. I've been here since 2017. I haven't seen anybody like
Never
that here.
seen a child here.
No, not at all.
And so you've
8
never
years.
seen a child here for 8 years?
Nope, not at all.
And how does that make you feel, knowing that this place is receiving $1.9 million?
Disgusting.
Like, even if there were children in the past 8 years, why the fuck would this guy know whether or not there are kids there? That's so stupid. I think the fact that there are no children there now, I believe, it seems to me like they closed it down, okay? And they got a conditional license because they had too many fucking violations over and over again. This is from 2022. But like the idea that there is no one of the most recent licensing reviews for this facility, a simple code violations involving children who were observed there during the review. You guys are painfully gullible. Or do you think the state agency is in on the conspiracy and fake watching someone administer medicine to a child, or that children weren't properly age grouped at all times, i.e. a toddler still in diapers was hanging out in the room with older kids? How far does the conspiracy go? So that's what it is. Like, if you want to actually complain about the substandard care for children, that's one thing, which is interesting because Republicans now are in favor of regulation, I guess, which I'm on board with. So I'm glad that you're finally coming to that conclusion that the regulatory bodies need to do proper investigations, and that's a good thing. Regulations are good. Okay. But that's a whole separate argument. And the problem here is that there are some of these facilities that were actually caught doing fraud. Some of these facilities were actually fraudulent, and not just like code violations, but some of the facilities were actually involved in the fraud scheme that took place in the previous investigation. But tying it up to every single facility is ridiculous, especially without the proper evidence.
I mean, what the hell? They stealing the money. That's a federal grant, too. That's, you know, if they get caught for that's a federal offense. I know, I studied law.
And do you think Tim Walz should go to jail for all the fraud that he's enabled here in his state?
That's him doing this? Heck yeah. He's got to be held accountable for this. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason what's going on here. It's simple. It's nothing there. It's a parking lot.
And look, they even spelled learning wrong on their sign for a place that's supposed to be educating children.
That's crazy. I mean, who runs it? Who supposedly runs it?
Somalians.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Well, where? Yeah, it's just, I've never seen nobody here at all.
So how long have you been living here?
Since 2017, 2018.
You've never seen a single child walk in that building?
No, not at all.
How's Waltz related to this? He's a Somali secret. He's a secret Somali. That's what it is. That's why he did the Somali flag. Duh. Why do you think he changed the state flag? Why do you think he changed the state flag to the Somali flag? Because he's secret Somali.
So this daycare center is literally just a place to traffic.
Is SOG. Somali occupied government.
Money. $1.9 million just this year alone. And this guy's been living here for 8 years and has never seen a single child walk through those doors. There's no windows either.
No.
And the only window they do have, the door, is blacked out.
Yep, I see that. I've never seen anybody go in there.
Within just a few hours, we nearly approached $20 million in fraud, and we headed over to George Floyd's...
Yeah, that facility license was revoked, I think, in 2024, but I don't understand that because then it says there was another licensing review that took place there, so I don't know if that facility's license was actually revoked in 2024. I think it was revoked and then reinstated, and then there was a licensing investigation that took place in 2025, in the beginning of 2025. Wait, George Floyd... What?
Neighborhood to expose $20 million in fraud, and we headed over to George Floyd's neighborhood to expose more of the fraud taking place.
This place is called Future Leaders Early Learning Center, and it's licensed for 90 children. And in fiscal year 2025, they received $3.6
A common funding model is to fund a child care center upfront for a period of time based on, in part, the center's max capacity. Instances of overfunding are identified through reconciliation with actual data, e.g., actual staffing and attendance over the year, and government funds are recovered.
$1 million. In fiscal year 2024, they received $3 million. So in 2 years, they got $6.67 million, claiming they have 90 children every day of the week, 5 days a week. So let's find out.
This is the other one that they're going to.
NBA athletes.
And we don't even know if they're paying taxes, but we don't know where this money is going. Is it going to terrorism? Where is it going? But it's...
I mean, I think even if there is fraud, it's probably going into the pockets of the people who are doing the fraud and not like, I don't know, funding terrorism. I don't know where these guys got that information from. There was an investigation that was conducted on whether or not any of these funds even went back to Somalia, right? And therefore in the hands of like terrorist elements in Somalia. And it turns out that wasn't the case. So, you know, that's people. The people don't consume information. Yeah.
It's theft. It's fraud.
So there's a lot of statements that have been made so far. Tim Walz is somehow responsible. The Somali flag looking new flag for the state of Minnesota indicates Tim Walz's level of responsibility, even though it was, as I've already, there are a lot of claims that are being made. I'm trying to go through them piece by piece here and show you what the truth is. Obviously, there hasn't really been too much tying Tim Walz into all of this. Even though, yeah, as he is the governor and the entire Minnesota state has not offered proper regulatory oversight into a lot of these welfare programs. Tim Walz is responsible for that, right? As the governor, he is in charge of the state, and the state very clearly dropped the ball here, right? This is true. But to what degree they dropped the ball is in question. And did they actually identify the criminal elements and then that's it? Or is it a much larger conspiracy?
And the reason I'm involved is I want it to stop. I care about Minnesota. I'm doing this for the people of Minnesota. I don't make a dime off all this time I've spent on this. I put my life at risk several times, but I'm determined to see this through and to correct what is wrong, what is evil.
Here at Future Leaders Early Learning Center, this building received 3.
This is the Future Leaders Learning Center. Got a licensing review last month. Carpeter rugs were not in good repair. Program space was not clean. Products controlled diaper rash were not properly labeled. The program was not operating within the terms of the license. And there was a correction document that was submitted for everything, and they were approved.
Over $3 million. Hello, how are you? I would like to see if I could bring little Joey, my son little Joey here. Is there paperwork or can I check out the daycare? No. Why can't I check out the daycare? Okay, but if can I get paperwork or anything to submit my son little Joey to come in here to daycare?
Again, dog, you have cameras with you. You have a bunch of people. Of course people are going to be sussed out. Like, even if you were going to do this, you have to bring your little brother or something, okay? Like, you can't just, like, walk up with old white guy and security and a camera crew and then be like, why are they being weird about this? With no little bro in tow, okay? You got a dude who is supposed to be security with a balaclava on, and you're like, why are they being weird and suspicious? It's a fucking childcare center. Of course they're going to be fucking suspicious of random adults that are trying to barge in. Why wouldn't they be? Yeah, especially at a time when there's like heightened tension. Especially at a time when there's heightened tension. They probably, the white lady chasing them around actually made me realize they probably think these guys are fucking ICE or something. And it doesn't even mean that there's any like undocumented migrants in the facility, but it doesn't matter, right? Because Donald Trump is saying we're going to go after all the Somalians over and over again. Doesn't matter if all of the Somalians are actually American citizens. They're still understandably fucking worried that the president has put a fucking crosshair on them. And they've seen the news reporting on daycare facilities and schools getting raided by ICE. So they understandably want to protect the children. They're not going to let anybody in there. What are you, fucking crazy?
I'd really like to put Joey in this daycare. We've heard great things.
Business card?
No, I would like your business card, actually.
You talk to your manager.
Okay, can I speak with somebody? Where are the children at? Are there children here today?
No.
No children?
Yes.
Why are there no children? Would my son, little Joey, have friends to play with here?
No.
No.
Yes.
No friends for little Joey?
Yes. Sorry.
Ah, dang it. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
So, little Joey would not be accepted to that daycare.
Joey's still homeless.
Joey's still looking for daycare.
Hassan, do you run ads whenever I click on stream? I never get them. I do not, my friend. The Piker Broadcasting Service is sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers. Your voluntary contributions in the form of a Twitch subscription, which is $6 a month, or a free one in the form of a Twitch Prime, which you can only get by connecting your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch account, is the most effective way to the most effective and foolproof way to sponsor the broadcast. PBS, Piker Broadcasting Services, sponsored by you, the viewers, for you, the viewers.
Because little Joey couldn't get into a daycare, we went to an autism center, as they have been popping up everywhere as a rise of autism has occurred here in Minnesota because of the government funds that they are receiving. I tried to check my son Joey into an autism center.
We've been going to a lot of these daycare centers. We're trying to find a spot for our little boy Joey, but we thought maybe we could check him into the autism center. Because none of the daycare centers are open. Yeah, and how many kids do you guys have at this autism center? Like more than 5?
Probably, yeah.
Probably, so you don't really know?
Yeah.
And what do you guys think about like the fraud that's been labeled on the autism centers here? What do you guys do think about the fraud, or how come the autism centers are popping up? My name's Nick. We're doing a little documentary trying to find little Joey a spot to put himself in one of these centers here, because there's the fraud. Yeah, because we want to make sure we're going to legit business if we're going to bring our little boy Joey here.
This is not a Joey spot. But that's our number, and we can't let you guys in. So.
Yeah, he's like, we can't let you in. This is a fucking childcare facility. Call the number if you want to, if you actually have further questions, or if you want to actually enroll your son here.
Oh, okay.
I don't understand how anybody fucking watches this and immediately assumes like, oh, these guys are the sus ones and not the fucking dude. This one is called, what is it?
Yeah, because we want to make sure we're going to legit business if we're going to bring our little boy Joey here.
This is not a Joey spot. Yeah. But that's our number.
Yeah, Minneapolis Autism Center, 621 East 38th Street, Minneapolis, Minnesota. That's the one. If there's actual fraud happening, wouldn't this YouTuber be ruining any chance of actually prosecuting it? It depends. It depends on how much interference that he can have with these places. I don't know. When I see this shit, I don't really understand. All the articles covering this viral video barely mention David, the guy investigating Nick Shirley, which makes this shit even more sus as fuck. Even right-wing media outlets are underplaying the role of David. Who the fuck is that guy anyway? I have no idea. And Nick Shirley didn't even bring his full name up. And so we have no way of like looking at his background, looking at what his credentials are in terms of like conducting investigations such as this one. They also, you can't find a DHS licensing for this one, for the human services licensing for this one. Is this it? Minnesota Aging and Disability Resources, Minneapolis Autism Center Corporation, the Early Intensive and Developmental Behavioral Intervention Benefit provides treatment for people with autism spectrum disorder and related conditions. This is the place, but it has an address, but on the government website. They literally have a behavioral analyst on staff at the address. Yeah, but you do understand. Oh, yeah, this is the address. Yeah. Okay. Well, you do understand that it's still suspicious because her name is sus, I'm still sussed out because that's a scary name. And for me, a scary name implies that there is a fraud happening here. You have to admit that it's pretty sus that not a single child care facility would let this guy and his camera in. Do they all have some sort of policy against that? Doubtful. Seems like a massive conspiracy to me. This is why liberal public-private partnership model is garbage. This is what privatization of services look like. We need government workers providing services directly. No more or less of these slush funds for these nonprofits. I know. That's the other side of this argument that I was going to get to eventually, which is that all of these facilities should be not just like heavily regulated by the government, but they should just be controlled by the government. Nah, they are sus. Ain't that many kids with autism. Their answers are weird though. How many non-Somali autism? Their answers are only weird if you don't understand how these places have a guardianship agreement with parents. Okay. Of course, they're not supposed to let in random dickheads with cameras into their facilities. What the fuck are you talking about? If you weren't a child and were an adult and actually had a child that was going to one of these facilities, how would you feel if they were just letting in random dickheads with cameras? I get not letting them in, but have better answers. What do you fucking mean? It's in the middle of the day. He's a random creep from their perspective. Put yourself in the shoes of the person that is working there. Oh, walking up to daycares and being like, show me the children. Show me the children. Show me the children right now. Show me the children right now. Why are you being weird about me demanding you show me the children with my camera? They don't have time for a centerpiece for racist YouTubers content. They're busy working. Yeah. What the fuck? Show me the kids right now. How autistic are they? I'm going to ask them questions about trains. Let me into your facility right now. Tell me the exact number of autistic children are inside right now and how autistic they are. Otherwise, it's a fucking scam. Doing this in the midst of like ICE raids being conducted too, it makes it even dumber. Like doing this in the midst of ICE raids being conducted all over, while also factoring in that Donald Trump, around the time that this video was being filmed, was like straight up saying all Somalis are doing fucking fraud in Minnesota, and we're gonna send ICE, and we're gonna get ICE to take care of all the Somalians. Yeah, I would assume that there is a heightened environment of tension, and all of this, for the record, like even with this video, whether this video exists or not, I'm not saying that there isn't like actually fraud happening in Minneapolis. There is fraud happening in Minneapolis. We know that already. There has been an investigation and people have been arrested for it. Okay. But this goes above and beyond. This is there is no fucking real, there's no real evidence here whatsoever. And the only thing that they're relying on is your feelings, your personal feelings. Like the puzzle piece that's missing here is the actual evidence. And you're making up for it by going, oh, well, this random right-wing dickhead that's like harassing a bunch of different facilities, like going up to a bunch of different facilities and demanding entry into facilities where there's potentially children inside, and their lack of interest in like letting in this guy with a camera crew in implies that they're obviously doing fraud is insane. That's not evidence at all.
Okay, thank you. So once again, little Joey, he can't even go to daycare, and now they won't even accept him if he has autism.
And again, no kids. Couldn't tell you how many kids they served.
None of the facilities that they went to, do we know if there's children inside or not? The only facility that they went to where we think there are no children is not because of his video, but because we looked it up. We looked up the fucking facility, which he could have done as well, by the way, before going to the facility, ironically enough. So he's just like wasting a lot of time.
After being able to provide no evidence of them actually being an autism center in a place where a child could go, they shut the door and we headed to the next fraudulent daycare center that was just around the corner.
We're on to the next location. We're still trying to find little Joey a place to go to get some daycare.
So where we're going now is a place called Super Kids Daycare Center. Interestingly, this daycare center was shut down when it was called Creative Minds.
You made him mad? People like this commie literally shock their dogs and complain about America 24/7. When someone actually leaves their room to do something, wait for it, then they defend the criminals. I don't know what kind of fraud Somalis and daycares are doing, but I think it's a separate crime to try and storm with a camera into a daycare with kids in it. Why do you get so mad about that? Why won't you show our group of middle-aged men with cameras where the children are? What are you hiding? He's right. No, don't ban that guy. Come on. Don't ban that guy. This guy has a lot of good ideas, okay? I need to hear from guys like this. Explain to me how he's right. Because even in this tweet, you can tell. I'm saying, like, I don't know what kind of fraud Somalis and daycares are doing, okay? As in, there could be fraud happening in these daycares, okay? But I don't think that storming the facilities with a camera crew is probably going to crack open the case. Chatters, post your home address and let me in with a camera immediately. I heard you're doing fraud in your house. Yeah. I'm going to start running around declaring all these random chatters pedophiles, and I have to go inside to see where the children are in your home. Sorry. Also, I love that this guy says I don't actually leave my room to do something. I mean, I do all the time, as a matter of fact. I've probably traveled more than this fucking dipshit has this year. But once again, this kind of stuff, it doesn't matter how stupid his opinion is, because it's all entirely built around battle lines, right? This is my narrative. This is what I believe in. This is the opposition. There's no way that my opposition could actually have reasonable concern, even if they might agree with the underlying claims being made, right? Spoilers. You were literally accosting random people in the halls of a strip mall, interrogating them about where the kids are. And when they told you they don't work there, literally just random Somali people, the police had you remove. Wait, what? Really? Oh, there's a spoiler in the video. This video demonstrates how removing context is the primary method of right-wing grievance creation. Like when Ethan removes the context to make Hasanabi sort of sound like he says something he did not say. This guy misheard a woman and he's misunderstanding to immediately go on the attack against the woman, just totally lying. Yeah.
Lions Daycare, and it had received $2.45 million this fiscal year, 2025. They had to shut down because there were so many violations, and they went and they just reopened under a new license, and they renamed the center.
Untraveled. Should I respond? I want to reply. Wait until they find out about the nursing home scams. I know. That's the other thing. There's a lot of scam. There's a lot of scams that happen in these places too. Finish the video before replying. Okay. We're at 24 minutes. There's like still another 20 minutes.
Super Kids Daycare Center, LLC.
So they got shut down, then started another one.
Literally the next day.
Creative Minds Daycare, $2.45 million got sent to this daycare center. We have empty parking lot. We do have a bus here. This is different. We'll see if we see anybody.
It's not different. The other places had vans in the parking lots as well.
I knocked on the door. Absolutely nobody was inside. And once again, no children could be heard anywhere.
So David, once again, another child daycare center. We have a bus out here. No one's inside. Licensed for over 50 kids. No children anywhere. But yet, millions of dollars every single year.
So the sign says Creative Minds Daycare. They got in so much trouble. They had so many violations that they had to shut down, and they reopened the next day under Super Kids Daycare Center. You see 3801 Portland, 3801 Portland, which is where we are.
So that's fraud right there alone.
Millions and millions of dollars, and again, the kids are missing. Where are the kids?
You would think if they had the same address, that whoever's inside or working at the Capitol here inside of Minnesota would just say, oh, maybe that's a red flag.
They just write the check. Human Services, they got to clean out the whole bunch. They're the ones who enabled this fraud. How can you not look and say, wait a minute, these two are registered at the same address?
On top of all of the child care centers, that's just only a small piece of the fraud. What other fraud are they committing here in Minnesota?
So another major piece of the fraud is the home health care industry. Where we're going now is a building that has 14 Somali-owned home health care companies in the same building.
14 of the same healthcare companies in one building.
14 home health care companies with different names in the same building.
How bad has Tim Walz managed the budget here inside of Minnesota?
So the last biennium, we had an $18 billion surplus.
The one he showed earlier just got its license 2 months ago. But this is the Super Kids Daycare Center that's new, though. Like, they got a new license now for a day program. Pre-license, it has a pre-licensure review. Prior to receiving a license to operate, one or more visits are made to this program. Please see the initial effective date for the day the license was issued. Old saggy white man demanding to see kids, very on par with this administration. Brother, home healthcare business only needs a business address and shipping. Yeah, the other one was shut down. I just say that they were committing fraud. How is it the Dems' fault for being defrauded? They should have caught it, but they didn't commit a crime, and the money is still being allocated to a place where it should have been helpful. No. If it's been ongoing for an extended period of time, okay, there is enough scrutiny there. Like, there is definitely enough. There is culpability there. If these guys are just like constantly getting fucking defrauded, okay, then yeah, no, it definitely invites a little bit of scrutiny to the administration. You're not taking into account that people doing the investigations are not doing a thorough job. No, I'm saying something beyond that. I'm saying that it's not that they're not doing a thorough enough job. It's that they're in on it. If the claims being made here are true, that would mean that the Human Services is in on it. Okay? There must be like a kickback or something. And that's what a lot of people don't understand about my commentary here. Because it doesn't make any fucking sense. Now you hit it, lol. I know. This is what I've been saying from the start. The problem is a lot of people don't hear the if in my statement. And secondly, a lot of people don't understand that that is a totally separate and much more careful investigation that must be conducted to figure out the paper trail and to try to understand the level of involvement from the fucking state. Okay? That's it. Because if these human services, man, stop entertaining this bullshit. No, I'm just listen. So far, there is not enough evidence to suggest, because he's not providing us with any like verifiable evidence. He's not giving us anything. He's just going to the facilities and yelling, "You're doing fraud. Show me your kids right now." That's not evidence, right? That's the problem. He just fucking made like clickbaity content out of it. That's not like, where is the actual investigation? There's no proper investigation. We've conducted more investigation here from Los Angeles, California, with the help of the fucking entire audience. We've looked further into the background of these facilities than he has. That's insane.
This biennium, we have a $6 billion deficit. That's a $24 billion swing in one biennium. How in the world can you burn through $24 billion in 2 years? This is how, right here. This is a huge part of it.
And so would you say a lot of that is fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Absolutely. I would say better than 90% of it is absolute outright fraud.
And a large percentage of this fraud is from these healthcare companies that are charging the state millions of dollars while they actually aren't providing anything. In fact, the FBI just did a raid a few days ago on a building similar to the one we are about to enter. Inside of this building, there were 14 of nearly the exact same businesses offering the exact same services.
Right here, you have a list of all of the healthcare companies. Loads of them right here. We want healthcare.
No, it's okay.
Yes, we'd like to speak about getting healthcare here.
No more.
Why can't I get healthcare here? This is a entirely, okay, see? Notice how this one is most likely a healthcare plaza. These sorts of areas exist in Los Angeles too. But like, it's a business park. It happens, like this is normal, okay? For those of you who've never encountered one of these things, okay? This is it looks suspicious, but it could be normal, except we already know that it's a fucking illegal or fraudulent. We already know that it's a fucking, fraudulent fucking business because the government already fucking conducted an investigation. Yeah, it's home health care. They send nurses and doctors to your house. This is my job. You need a doctor's order to get services. Now I have to look into, lol, Elon is watching. Oh, God. Now we need to get into that investigation, that separate investigation. Oh, he's saying, oh, this isn't even the fraudulent one. Even if it's fraudulent, you can't record in a medical office. We don't even have any evidence that this is a fraudulent one. He's saying this is a similar place. So it was a fucking healthcare plaza. Why did the previous one get raided? What's the stop an armed hog showing up to these daycares Pizzagate style to uncover the truth? I mean, it's most likely going to happen. So he's not providing corroborating evidence for his claim. I doubt that he would ever cross-check any of the baseless claims as this guy proposes. His only way of justifying the claims are short news clips of him speaking over it. Yes.
Warning, you are under video surveillance. No trespassing, security armed. This is the strangest place I've ever been.
Bro, look at his crew. Oh my God. Yeah, I wonder why people were sussed out, brother. I wonder why people were a little weirded out by your fucking...
This is the strangest...
This is how he's rolling around, dude. There's random people looking at him like, what the fuck's going on? He's got two motherfuckers in balaclavas and the random old creepy guy everywhere he's going. The meta camera on, demanding, show me the fucking kids. Of course they thought he was ICE. I work for a home health agency, take care of my mother. You literally have to have recommended from your doctor.
Place I've ever been to get healthcare. Just a bunch of different places. Healthcare here, healthcare right here. Another healthcare.
Brody's never been to a medical plaza. Have you never seen do you not have like a dentist? My dentist's office is in a very similar environment. You know? Do you think that all matter of healthcare is conducted in just like a hospital setting or something? Is that what's going on here? this straight up is identical to, this looks almost identical to my fucking dentist office. I guess he's fraudulent. He's a fraud.
Company right here. There are 3 healthcare companies inside of this building right here in this room of 7C. Now we have another Helping Hands Home Care LLC, another healthcare company. Present Help right here. We're looking for the best rates of healthcare here inside this building because we have so many options. Who can we talk to about getting the best healthcare?
I don't know.
No?
Sorry.
All right. We will not get any healthcare here.
The entire video relies on these guys just like sussing people out and then them turning around and being like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you. You have a fucking camera crew and a bunch of ICE agent looking motherfuckers and you're recording everything in a fucking healthcare facility. I don't want to talk to you. That's it. That's the whole, like, that's the only piece of evidence that they've shown so far, bro. I work for a giant university hospital and there are entire buildings like this that are seemingly empty, especially during the day. Yeah.
David, this is one of the stranger places I've ever been. Literally, healthcare every door you go to, yet nobody.
It's a medical plaza! What the fuck?
Will give you a rate. How much money do you think's been funneled through this building?
Every year, I would say 50 to 60 million at least.
And finally, we were accepted into one of the daycare centers and they actually took down our information to give us a rate. However, when we left, we were then met with the police.
We received a complaint that someone matching your description were in this building.
Fucking finally, someone was like, hey, can you get these fucking assholes out of here? Oh my God.
Stay here.
Oh, we're checking out the rates for healthcare. Because there's 14 healthcare companies inside this building, so.
Okay.
Well, that's not what he said. He said there's 14 companies here, and he's trying to assume because they're Somali providers, everyone here is fraudulent.
Okay. So
he's here with some kind of like propaganda.
No, we're just checking.
Yes!
This
Cook
is
his
a,
ass.
Area that we're allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance. Is there any other reason that you guys are here?
Well, we were checking rates.
No, he's not.
We were checking rates. We asked for rates.
No, you're not.
Okay. I'm gonna have, if you guys are all good, we're gonna step outside and we can continue this conversation.
All right, let's leave. So, all right, we're getting escorted out right now. The police have arrived. We were checking out the rates, seeing what was happening inside this building. No one would really speak with us. We did go inside the one daycare center, and she actually did give us rates for childcare. Much respect to that lady. What's the problem, officer?
Well, so again, we've been getting reports from multiple individuals that you guys were harassing individuals who work here.
Back to blue, baby. Thin blue line. Thin blue line. This is so stupid, dude. Oh my God. Yeah, I have important context. In the wake of the ICE occupations, community rapid response networks that popped up that will take reports from community members on ICE activity. Remember, ICE doesn't identify themselves and the Somalis are tight-knit. Yeah, except not fucking tight-knit enough, low-key. They should have fucking packed this dude up at the second facility that they went to. Not like every goddamn facility around town. What the fuck? He just straight up was like traveling everywhere, harassing random people that work at these facilities with 2 motherfuckers with like balaclavas on too.
At the end of the day, this is private property, and it's one that people are allowed to ask you to leave, and it's also one the Minneapolis Police Department is allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance at this address.
Yeah.
So
as we got escorted out of this building, the Somalis filmed us as we left, and we headed over to the next building that had 22 of the same home health care providers operating from inside.
Okay. This video gets increasingly dumber because now he's just straight up going to medical plazas. Okay? Like, I assume that there has to be enough people that have encountered a medical plaza, right? Like, because if you have, you look at this and you go, that's kind of normal. Like, I was with you the first half, but like now you're just stretching it, right? It's just like, it doesn't even fucking make any sense. He's just going to a medical plaza and being like, isn't this suspicious? It's like a chatter said, like, you go to the food court and you're like, why is the Wendy's next to Burger King? They're both serving burgers. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird at this food court? Someone needs to investigate this. Brother, you are in America? I mean, but like, the first time I ever encountered a medical plaza was in the United States of America. It was in specifically New Jersey. You know? So for me, it's like, this is the most American thing. I would say this feels stranger to Europeans, that you look at from afar. You look at like a mall, right? Or you look at like a plaza that looks like there's a bunch of businesses in it, but then it turns out there's actually fucking doctors or like healthcare providers inside of the business. Like, that is weird. That was weird to me when I first saw what a medical plaza is. So if anything, like, Americans are probably more, more tuned into this shit. Check logs, Brody. Think they trust cops, dude? Why would immigrant communities rely on the cops, though? ACAB always, bro. Don't forget, police collaborate with ICE, too. Yeah, that's true.
Side of the building.
Right here you have multicultural home care. And right here it says it's open, but can't even get in. Another Reliance Recovery Center. Mercy and Grace Care, Inc. Right here you have Den Eritrean Youth Development Association of Minnesota. Another child care center. Welcome to Bright Beginning Center. But what do you guys think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
Sorry. No comments. Can I please?
Right here you have Serenity Quality Care. All of these businesses are literally the same type of business, providing the same service in the same building. Another Convenience Home Healthcare Aid Inc. and Child Friendly Space. All these companies get money from the government. Why would you have the same company essentially inside of the same building, door to door? Right here, Queenly Home Healthcare. It just does not make sense. If you're trying to operate a business, you'd want to have less competition.
Oh my God. He's just that fucking stupid. Oh my God. Brother just looked at the concept of a mall and said, this doesn't make economic sense. I can, like, 90% of conservative argumentation relies on just their sheer inability to understand how things work and their lack of imagination or lack of critical thinking, and assuming that there is a massive conspiracy. We saw this with the fucking vaccines. We saw this with the way that they talk about, like, any sort of, like, medical intervention that takes place with abortions, right? Where they describe it in such, like, gruesome terms. It's just, yeah. I mean, it's the world is a terrifying place if you genuinely are stupid. If you're like a genuinely stupid guy, the world's got to be a terrifying place. There's a lot of sounds. There's a lot of lights. It's like a fucking caveman that was under a rock, trapped in fucking ice, and they thawed him, and now they just, like, released him into the wild, and he's like, what is all these lights? Like, the irony here is, even if there is an argument to be made about, like, fraudulent activity taking place in these medical plazas or medical facilities or whatever, he is not even remotely tackling that. Like, there is no scrutiny here whatsoever. He's just looking at a normal thing, a medical plaza, and inviting unnecessary scrutiny to it by going, isn't it strange that the concept of a medical plaza exists? Yeah, man. Totally unique, fascinating concept. Going into a surgery center on the weekend. Well, not a doctor or patient in sight. They must be giving surgeries to ghosts. This is creeping me out, dude. Yeah, and then the second part of that is also, the underlying conservative brain, the underlying mentality amongst conservatives is just, like, being confused overall about how normal things work, and then being scared by that confusion because that means there is a grand conspiracy afoot. I fantasized that there were crimes taking place here, and that scared me. Makes you think.
But here, they have all of their competition right next door. We're wondering, because we hear there's lots of fraud taking place here in Minnesota, and we're wondering, why is there so many of the same companies inside of this same building?
No, I don't know that.
What do you think about the fraud that's taking place here in Minnesota?
I don't have any idea about that fraud, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
What do you think about the news articles and what's being spread on the news about the fraud?
Right now, you are doing something wrong.
I'm just asking you
No, you
about
don't
the
have
fraud.
to ask me, okay? Don't ask me that question again.
Okay.
Okay?
Who can I speak to?
Yeah?
Who can I speak to? Okay.
Well, this guy that I asked a bunch of random questions was positively rude to me. Must be a conspiracy. Or maybe he didn't want to deal with your dickhead ass, dude.
As soon as you confront them about the fraud, they get angry. When these people have these...
This is, dude, I'm telling you, this is the reason why it's, like, dumber than, this is dumber than, like, normal, like, Project Veritas style conspiracy theories. And therefore it's even more successful than that because everyone has become even dumber over the years. Is like, it's like looking at, the Vitaly style pedo hunters and saying, fuck it, I have a different approach, and just walking up to random people and accusing them of being a pedophile with a camera crew. And then when they yell at you and go, what the fuck are you saying? Get the fuck away from me. You go, clearly this guy's a pedophile. Like, how the fuck do we arrive at something even dumber? Like, that shit was already annoying. And now this is one step dumber than that. Instead of doing the previous, like, potentially pre-scripted or, potentially weirdly crafted pedo hunter videos, he's literally walking around and being like, I'm parked outside of this school in my van. And you won't believe it. Adults holding the hands of children. Clearly, there is a mass pedophilia epidemic taking place here. We are now going to investigate. And then walking up to parents taking their kids out of school and being like, why are you trying to fuck this kid? Tell me why you're trying to fuck this kid, you pedophile. And then when they go, dude, I'm calling the cops on you, he goes, well, the cops are taking me out of this very clear pedophilia operation because I've arrived at the truth. The cops must be in on it. They wouldn't let me into the classroom. They must be doing crimes with children inside. Yes, here we're peeking through the curtain, and we found out that these children are next to an adult, 30 at a time. What could the adult possibly be doing with the children? Pedophilia, obviously. Checkmate, libtard. And then people watch this video and go, well, I'm convinced. This isn't even the other guy's wheelhouse. He's just tagging along at this point, not even chiming in with his papers, starting to question why he's there. Just look at his face. Yeah, he's like, you're losing me. I was on board. He's like, listen, I was on board with the daycare facilities being hubs of fraud, but now you've come to my medical plaza, and I'm a little embarrassed because if my dentist sees me, they're gonna make fun of me. So can we just move out of here? Can we just make haste? My dentist is in this building. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. He lost interest. He lost interest because there's no children. He's like, this is the most Israel coded video I've ever seen, for the record. Okay, this is the most like there are terror calendars. This is a calendar of terror. Where are the children? It's clear that the Somali is hiding the children from me. A good guy. Why do they not believe I am good guy? I simply have camera. I want to see children. Show me the terror babies. Where are the children in the basement? No politics here. I am looking for children.
Home healthcare companies, you're seeing them everywhere inside this building. What kind of fraud are they committing?
So there's false documentation being submitted to the state of Minnesota for services never provided. They're having forms signed in advance for services that were then never rendered. As far as a year or 2 years in advance, they'll have someone sign these forms at one sitting, and then they just file those with the state of Minnesota, and nobody from the state of Minnesota bothers to check that those services were ever provided.
So they're essentially just using people saying that they had these services provided months or even years ago, then filing the paperwork and then receiving money from the government.
Right, and the Somali community is a very closed community, so everybody's in on it, and they don't want to talk, as you can see.
And for this building, I'm going to give an estimate of around $30 million for how much fraud is taking place. That is a very low estimate. However, still a lot of money in fraud.
And do you think there is fraud taking place here?
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what any of these businesses are doing?
I never ask.
And now with upwards of 100
Well, I'm convinced. Bro, would you believe if I were to tell you that J.D. Vance, who is a Yale Law School graduate, posted this video on his vice president Twitter account saying this journalism is worthy of a Pulitzer Prize? Would you believe me if I told you that the guy who wrote a book, Hillbilly Elegy, who was a darling of liberals, who went to Yale, so we know he's literate, would you believe me if I said that? Because it did happen. He did say that. He did post that. He said, this dude has done far more useful journalism than any of the winners of the 2024 Pulitzer Prize Center. 235,000 likes. The journalism is yelling, strapping a camera on and yelling at yelling outside of random childcare facilities, demanding to see the children, going to a medical plaza and saying, isn't it suspicious? Why are all these fucking, why are all these different healthcare facilities next to one another in this medical plaza? Is journalism for people like this? What did this guy say? Bro has Israel psychosis. Lol, is Israel in the room with us right now? Crazy analogy, dude. Those guys are raided by the FBI. What is dumb is your analogy? There are no kids in any of the child cares that they went through. No, you didn't see that there were. Bro, why did you tweet before even seeing the video? Why are there 0 kids in home cares? He found 0 kids. How can you explain the abundance of kids? It wasn't a weekend, though. How do you explain no kids, though? What is dumb is your analogy. Crazy analogy, dude. Oh. Especially when I brought up Israel, they got real mad. Lol, is Israel in the room with you right now, Hassan? Bro has Israel psychosis. Interesting how you chose to chirp up when I made an analogy and said this is the most Israel coded video. I just don't know why you chose to chime in at that point. I am Mossad. I don't think you are, but I like that guy who's very sensitive about Israel getting mentioned in any format whatsoever is also trying to see children. Interesting. Why are you trying to see the kids so bad? That was the joke.
$1 million in fraud will be headed to one more daycare, and this one gets a little spicy as we get chased out at the very end. And after this, we'll be heading to the state capitol to confront the incompetent government leaders who have enabled this fraud to happen.
And I knew this video was going to be super dangerous to film because of obviously
Wait, what? Why? Imagine if he did this with Jewish doctors, medical part. Yeah, dude, exactly. Oh, Cedar Sinai? That's not American. What kind of language is this? We investigated on a Saturday Cedar Sinai Hospital, and they're stopping at every floor. What is the secret that they're hiding? Why do they want the elevators to stop at every floor? I will not be asking any further questions, and I just assume it's Judaism at play. Well, in that situation, it would literally be Judaism at play. But like, you see what I'm saying? Isn't it weird how all these doctors are Jewish? What are they doing to the children? Something nefarious is afoot. Could you check log? Love you. No.
Hostile it is, and as we are exposing legit fraud happening, I did get security for this video, and I was able to do it through the Black Line Guardian. And if you guys want to help fund my security in the future.
What? Is he doing an ad for their fucking... He's doing a separate ad for Uber for private security.
The things happening, and especially with this fraud. Like I said, they're not sponsoring this video. I'm just giving them a shout out because of how they helped me. So go down to the link down below, click Guardian for Nick, and let's keep going. And now we're going to the next location. Now, this child daycare center, this one's different than all the other ones we've been to. Tell us about this one.
This one is different because, according to the state of Minnesota, this 312 West Lake Street houses not 1, not 2, but 3 child care centers and is licensed to hold 102 children. And in fiscal year 2025, was paid $2.66 million by the state of Minnesota.
And this is the building right here. So this building alone made $2.6 million. Let's see if anybody is inside. Now we're inside of the building.
I really thought the way people came in to this broadcast, like just hot as hell about this massive investigation that was conducted. The way that they made it seem, I thought that there was going to be like at least some evidence. And it turns out the only fucking evidence is that he just goes around town straight up fucking demanding entry into what it seems like is childcare facilities. And then when either no one opens the door, or when the people that open the door turn around and say, no, you can't come in here. What the fuck's wrong with you? He just goes, aha! The proof is right there. They wouldn't let me and my weird friends that look like ICE agents and my camera crew into this facility where there are children. This must mean that there aren't any children there. Like, even if every single fucking facility that he visited 100% was fraudulent, he did not prove any of it. Like, he didn't even do it at all. even if every single facility he went to was fraudulent and had no children whatsoever in it and all this shit, it would be pure happenstance that he arrived at this conclusion. Well, not pure happenstance, let's be real, it's racism. But like he just straight up didn't prove dick. He didn't even provide any evidence whatsoever. We have been able to find more information about these facilities online that he should have looked into beforehand. If he wanted to invite reasonable scrutiny to the care and consideration that these kids were going through, right, in this otherwise government-funded program, then he could have just at least presented the actual claims. Okay? He could have at the very least shown what we have shown so far. He could have greatly over-exaggerated the conditions in the facilities and be like, these facilities are in a state of dire disrepair. Look at how devastating it is. What are our children going through? All this stuff. Or even if he wanted to continue along with this like mass fraud, right? Mass fraud conspiracy, he could have said, who's in on it? Maybe the government is in on it. Clearly, they claim to have gone into these facilities and have actually seen the children. And I didn't see any children. What the fuck's going on there? I tried to, like, he could have gone online, tried to actually, he could have gone online and then tried to actually get his brother or something, like his little bro or a relative, to sign up for these child care facilities. He could have investigated it further. He could have called ahead of time. Like, there are so many things you can do in this situation to craft an even better narrative. But why would you have to craft a better narrative when clearly this kind of idiocy actually works, perhaps works a little bit better? And then he turns around and fucking tweets a poly market bet. Time for people to learn. Time for people to leer the hard way. I guess it's because he's like, the learning center is leering center, right? Is that what he's making a joke about? Let's see what a source that is beholden by ethics and not clicks has to say. Oh, it's entirely different. The opposite even. Wait, it debunks all of Nick Shirley's lazy claims. In an article from the 4th, surely he did some fact checking. What to know about Minnesota fraud allegations as Trump levels attacks on Tim Walz. A series of multi-million-dollar alleged fraud schemes in Minnesota has drawn the Trump administration's attention in recent weeks, vaulting an issue. Bro, this is, by the way, exactly what happened with the fucking cats and dogs shit. Springfield, Ohio, Haitians are eating cats and dogs. Okay? And then every place in Springfield, Ohio started getting death threats and bomb threats for the next week. Why are we living like this? How do we can't continue living like this, where we're just beholden to the fucking schizophrenic tendencies of like 30% of the fucking population. Now you got motherfuckers talking about hunting daycare facilities, doxing people that work there. Ask Grok for an extensive list of daycares in your city. Don't pay attention to the list it gives you. Click the link it provides. Here's an example in Columbus, Ohio. Then go hunting. The first 3 I pulled up were Star Wars names. Star Wars names is, I guess, the names of the administrators are not white. Nick Shirley was in Israel earlier this year interviewing the last mayor of Gaza, retired IDF Colonel Grisha Yakubovich, who was the mayor during Israel's occupation in the early 90s. He asked questions such as, how did Hamas become a group that is raping and murdering babies? Oh, so I wasn't off when I said this guy is the most Israel-coded fucking content creator.
Take me time to understand. And it's not only the terrorists, it's also the civilians.
How did Hamas go from a group that was helping people to now and murdering babies?
Theology, philosophy, incitement, using Islam.
Where's that fucking chatter? Where's that fucking chatter? Bitch ass. Another 80 IQ analogy. The Schrodinger's children, when he visited, they disappeared. Brother, I need you to understand something. And this is going to be quite difficult for you because you literally do not have the brain processing capacity to understand anything, okay? If you, as a random person, in a time when there is heightened scrutiny due to the president literally saying he's going to sick ICE agents on like schools and facilities and shit like that, are going in to a childcare facility with a group of private security guys wearing balaclavas and a fucking camera and another random like local fucking weirdo demanding to see the children, of course they're not going to fucking let you in. That doesn't mean that there's no children in there.
And murdering babies. Theology, philosophy, incitement, using Islam to radicalize. It's a process that took almost 40 years. It will take me time to understand. And it's not only the terrorists. It's
I don't know if you heard it yet, but we looked into a lot of these places here. It claims are empty. All of them have children enrolled and even get counted. When the state auditor was there to issue the license, is likely empty now due to ice and the holidays. No, I know. We did that as well. One by one, every single facility visited, we have looked into it. And the state auditors, unless there's a grand conspiracy here, and the state auditors are involved in this fucking mass fraud, which even if that is the case, for the record, even if that is the fucking case, by the way, there is no evidence that he presents because he's too stupid to actually investigate anything. But unless there is a much larger conspiracy here where the Department of Human Services is actually involved in the fucking fraudulent scheme, okay, which requires a federal agency to look into the actual auditors not doing their jobs or potentially getting kickbacks or some shit, right? All this video is a crock of shit. The problem is the video is a crock of shit regardless of whether there's fraud or not. Like, I'm not even saying that there isn't like, you know, his Israel video had low views. Yeah. And now all these fucking facilities are going to get bomb threats by some of the most psychotic fucking losers, dude. Awesome. Awesome. I love the way that things work in this country, you know? It's so awesome. Asmongold called on the public to terrorize Somali communities.
Present help right here. We're looking for the best rates of healthcare here inside this building because we have so many
best
options.
rates.
Who can we talk
here we
about
go.
getting the best healthcare?
I don't know.
Oh, here we go. I wonder why this lady is not responding to the guy with a fucking camera. I wonder. It must be because she's Somali and also is up to no good.
I don't know.
No.
Wow.
It actually took down information to give us a rate. However, when we left, we were then met with the police.
We received a complaint that, matching your description, we're in this building harassing the individuals who...
And he's trying to assume because they're Somali providers, everyone
Yes.
here is fraudulent.
Okay.
So we're
He's here with
Another
some kind of
Karen.
propaganda.
Yep.
This is a area that we're...
Wait, that's a Karen and not the fucking person running around with a fucking camera harassing people? Oh, fuck?
allowed to enforce trespassing ordinance.
And the Somali community is a very closed community, so everybody's in on it, and they don't want to talk, as you can see.
What would you have the police do instead if you were them? What would be your course of action? Genuinely curious. I would create a situation where the police would be afraid to defend these places because they would be worried about being persecuted. This would cause the police to leave and completely disband the police force.
What? Brother, in the aftermath of actual documented, charged, prosecuted Medicare fraud, when I said if Republicans actually cared about Medicare fraud, they would offer the highest penalty, the death sentence, to Rick Scott, who had actually conducted the worst Medicare fraud in U.S. history. Not to say that there was like any sort of clear-cut death threat towards a politician. Asmongold literally fucking spent the next week talking about how dangerous I was and I must be fucking, I must be deplatformed. He's literally saying you got to persecute the fucking cops. They have to feel like the environment is unsafe for them if they actually do their job as in this situation in an instance where he is hallucinating potential fraud taking place. The fraud isn't even real. Dude, I'm sorry. If he doesn't get a stern talking to in the aftermath of this statement, Twitch is unironically fucking biased, but it's not biased in the way that you would think. It's not biased in my favor, okay? I got banned for a fucking misunderstanding. This motherfucker's doing incitement.
This would allow the companies and the people in the area to be effectively completely lawless and turn it into anarchy. That would make it completely chaotic, and these people would then become terrorized by the people that are in this community that they are somehow trying to enable, right? And so the goal is for that to happen and to make it as unpleasant and awful for them as possible, so that way they realize the mistake that they've made.
So when they do actually follow through on this demand, because it's very likely that it's going to happen if it hasn't happened already, because the video just came out. Right wingers are pumping the fuck out of this. It's all over Fox News and shit. And people start issuing bomb threats and stuff like that. And then the community will beg for people to stop, right? Like you'll have members of law enforcement in Minneapolis being like, please stop sending fucking false bomb threats to random childcare facilities in Minneapolis. And Asmongold is directly incited for this terrorism. Will he actually get deplatformed? This is the first time I'm asking this question, because everybody loves talking about hypocrisy. Yeah, turns out Twitch does actually support terrorism. It just wasn't the way that everyone else thought it was. Based, I guess.
Guys, hey, remember to pay your taxes so Somalians can live the American dream.
Asmongold caught you? In what? Asmongold is trying to claim you're botting your stream at the moment? I'm botting my stream at the moment. I have 26,000 people watching. The fuck am I botting to? It's not even like a high viewership day. What are we talking about? More projection from Asmongold? Is that what's going on?
This is what I would do. I would look at every single one of the residents and also citizens that have immigrated here. And if these people are considered to be net negative taxpayers, I would deport them and denaturalize and deport them. That's what I would do. Because why do we have all of these leeches on our society whenever they're not even from here? Will Trump act on this? No, I don't think he will. That's one of the reasons why I didn't vote for him. I didn't think that he had the... I don't think that he had the grit to do that. He's really great at killing people in the Middle East. That's amazing. But what about people here? Not good enough. Guys, hey, remember to pay your taxes so Somalians can live the American dream. This is what...
Oh, fuck? Different clip, same incitement.
Oh my god, bro. What my... Not only is this a call for domestic terrorism, oh, of course, right? The thing is, like, listen, these losers are not even worth responding to. They're not. They're not even worth responding to or taking seriously. At the end of the day, they want to come off on the side of illiterate, un-American immigrant Somalians rather than actual Americans, right? And, you know, at that point, I wonder who's really the one that's committing treason.
The fuck? Illiterate, un-American Somalians? First of all, it's Somalis, not Somalians. I feel like you're the fucking illiterate one here for not even getting that correct. And, I mean, not that it matters. I think it's like more so a disparagement, right? Like he's kind of saying that on purpose. Like, oh, who cares, right? Somalians. But I can't believe that, dude, I can't believe so many people fucking watched that video and genuinely thought that this guy had anything fucking reasonable to say. I mean, it makes my job much easier, I guess, to counter. But then again, I'm constantly struggling with the reality that the dumber the narratives are, the more people believe them. So you don't even have to really create an elaborate, convincing piece of propaganda by at least entertaining certain facts. You can just simply point to a medical plaza and be like, well, this is suspicious. The concept of a medical plaza, isn't that weird? No, motherfucker, it's not. It just shows you're a dumbass. Like, what the fuck do you mean?
Damn, this guy's good.